Well, whether that's an accomplishment depends on who you ask.
I think it's an accomplishment to watch a 4-hour movie. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say
Now
so.
you just need to try
Oh,
watching
wait a
a
minute.
24-hour movie. Yes,
Yeah.
they exist.
Yeah,
Oh
they
god.
they exist. Hell no. I've tried to. I barely can do a 4.5 hour Civil War movie. I can't do like this. This was already a bit of a trial to do.
Oh yeah, but then Bollywood movies would absolutely destroy you.
Oh no, I've
'Cause,
already been
I mean,
told that. Yeah.
because the versions we get are specifically edited for Americans, but Bollywood films get to like 5-6 hours because they're just like all the genres at once.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of my best friends, he's from India, so he's watched his fair share of Bollywood. He likes it, like he actually has fun watching a lot of it, but at the same time, he's just like their events. You gotta prep and be ready for that, and you better have like everything you need for that one sitting because you ain't gonna leave that chair. So
Yeah.
so like him and me would joke like my dad would never do it. Because, he has to take breaks every time he wants to go to the bathroom and all that. Okay, and I think one of us is echoing. Does everybody have headphones on?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Let me get headphones.
Aha! We discovered it. Hello, everyone. We are live, so we'll be starting up in just a quick second while she's getting headphones. I'll see if I can at least tag some of this. We're gonna have some fun tonight discussing the Snyder Cut. I don't know why I feel like saying it that way, but I do, and it works somehow. It's great. Yeah, I'm glad that I was the only one that I wasn't the only one that had an issue with it, because like I was telling them, Romney, I was like 2.5 hours in, and we had both had a hard work day. So me and my wife just go, yeah, we got to finish this tomorrow, because we don't want to fall asleep during it. And we were dang close at doing just that.
Surprising, because I did actually watch it Friday night after getting off work.
Yeah, we couldn't have done that. That would have been just kind of murder for both of us, because holy crap, we were just tired after a long, hard day. So that would have been great. Let's see. So let's grab some tags here. And then as soon as Shay is ready, we will get going.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I just grabbed headphones.
Okay, so I'm just grabbing all the things that say Zack Snyder, Justice League. Because I'm inventive. I'm such a good tagger. Let me tell you. Let's see. Oh, and
See,
also,
that's like
do we know really quick who played Darkseid? I have a feeling he'll be discussed in this.
I don't know.
Let's see. Ray Porter's the voice of Darkseid.
Ray Porter or Roy Porter?
Ray.
Okay.
R-A-Y.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I've got the right people in here.
Yeah. Speaking of voice actors, it kind of surprised me that Robin Atkins Downs was part of the looping crew.
Was he?
Yeah. I saw in the credits like Robin, loop team, and it said like Robin Atkins Downs.
Huh.
I mean, I noticed it, but that's because I've been replaying the Phantom Pain lately, so I'm just like, oh, it's Kaz.
Yeah, that's actually, I'll need to go back and look at that, because that's kind of cool, honestly, that he got brought into it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's how voice actors get a lot of their work, is working for looping studios.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm not knocking it. I think that's awesome, actually, that he was able to get in there. Let's see. Okay, that's enough. I think I've got enough tags for this. So let's go ahead and start this sucker up, shall we? And really quick, to the live audience that's just barely joining us, this is your warning. There will be spoilers. We will discuss it in depth. If you have a problem with this or have not seen the Snyder Cut yet, there's the door. You can watch this later. We love you. We're not kicking you out. We just want to make sure that we cover everything. So, nothing against you guys. But we are going to spoil the out of this. Because that's how we roll. That's how we roll.
Yeah. Plus, let's face it, most of the people wanting our opinions on it are likely the ones who have already seen it and who were.
Oh, I've already talked to a few of them, and given my opinion. So this is going to be nothing new to them from me, but they'll get to see yours.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people at the station were talking about it as well, and talking about like different aspects about it.
Mm-hmm.
It very much was kind of a water cooler movie.
Yeah, very much. Very much, which is surprising considering the 4-hour runtime. All right. Welcome once again, my friends, to another episode of Geek News Movie Night being broadcast live on YouTube. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody's had an awesome week because this week we've got an interesting, wonderful movie to be able to dissect, one that has been promised for quite a while, and that is I don't know why I keep doing this. Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's Justice League. So we are reviewing the Snyder Cut.
I thought you were just gonna say Zack Snyder's Justice League as like some sort of a bit or something.
Well, now I am Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm gonna throw that in editing. Now I'm gonna do that just because Romney brought up the idea. This is a great idea. Let me go ahead and introduce the panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTube creators, fellow awesome people in general, and geeks that you guys should be following, then that will be discussing the Snyder Cut with me. And joining us tonight is Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, of From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, and just fresh after watching the Snyder Cut. So, Romney, how you doing?
Well, hanging in there. I mean, so far, work hasn't been too crazy this week. I mean, yeah, there was still news, but at least it wasn't, like, catastrophically, having, like, at least World War III didn't break out, so that's a positive.
That's definitely positive.
Yeah, but as for my mental state after finishing a 4-hour movie divided into two sessions across 2 nights, well, I think I'll have to save the bulk of how it left me feeling for when we get into the meat of it.
Exactly. We also have Alex, the Shadow Blazer, who is joining us from out of the shadows and out of the. I should come up with a clever shadow pun, but nothing's coming to me. Alex, save me!
I'm not very good at puns either.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I guess we're screwed. Our comedy careers are done. Because that's going to be the way it goes. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing pretty good. Went to work today like usual, but there I am, ready to talk about the Snyder Cut League Justice of America thing.
Fun time variety.
I'm now doing his because that's awesome. I'm gonna put them all together, and we're just gonna have like a flub cut at the beginning of it, just like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then all that, and that'll be great. And also joining us as a special treat, we have Shay Tari. Shay, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Can't complain.
After 4 long hours, thankfully it was a couples movie night, so that was helpful.
It was.
Those are always fun.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our panel, and we are discussing Zack Snyder's Justice League. The other thing that's really sad about this is that I can't make the same jokes that I was making about Batman v Superman, which unfortunately Shay does not know, but you should know about the court case of Batman v Superman in regards to the Dawn of Justice.
Oh God. What? Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a running gag we had because of just the way the title was formatted.
Because the whole title was Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And every time we said that, we were just like, man, this sounds like a lawsuit. And so at that point, I just came up with the case of Batman v Superman in regards to the Dawn of Justice.
I like that, as it kind of makes it seem like there's now the whole case against it with the fact that it's such a not a great movie.
No.
I mean, like longtime viewers of Geek News know how that movie made me feel.
I tried to dig out the previous episode and I couldn't find it.
I never finished I never finished Batman v Superman. My dad and I tried to watch it, and it was the extended version. We tried to watch it, and we both fell asleep. And I asked my dad if he finished it, and he said no. He said it took too long to get to the good part, so I fell asleep. And I said I fell asleep too. I never finished it.
Who was it that fell asleep when we were watching it in the theater? Was it Aldo?
It might have been.
I think it was Aldo.
I think it was. I think it's because he had seen it before all of us, and so it was.
But he insisted on sitting next to Romney, and he never regretted that.
Yeah,
that was not a fun. That was not a fun night for Romney, or day.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I mean, to get new viewers up to speed, suffice it to say, I did not particularly care for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, particularly its implementation of Doomsday, and I speak as someone who still has comics from the immediate aftermath of the Death and Return of Superman that are probably worth something if I can actually find them.
Yep.
And so that storyline holds a special place in my heart. And to see that storyline wasted on a second movie of a larger franchise when it's something that requires lots of build-up, yeah, the animated movies did that storyline better.
No, they did not do it any favors. But thankfully, since you brought this up, this is actually where a few of our viewers wanted us to start with, is basically kind of going into what our thoughts were walking into these movies, specifically with the Joss Whedon Justice League. So at that point, I do kind of want to go into at least kind of a synopsis of where you were at with all of the movies that led up to it, because I'm not really counting Wonder Woman in there because Wonder Woman happened after. So at that point, basically what I'm saying is Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then the Joss Whedon Justice League on what you thought of those particular movies. Since, like I said, I tried to dig out our reviews of Batman v Superman as well as Justice League, but unfortunately those were back on our previous service, and I can't seem to find the files here. So I'll go ahead and go first here. So my thoughts on Man of Steel are very simple. I was torn about it, but more in a 60-40 that was going, 60-40 that was going against it, because there were things I liked about it. I did like Henry Cavill as Superman. I thought he was a good pick for Clark Kent, and he did look good in the outfit, and he actually did somewhat get the character. Despite all of the other issues that the movie had, including the fight scene with all kinds of product placement. So at that point, I was in the 60-40 of not liking it, but slightly disliking it. I felt like Zack could have done a whole lot better by Superman, and unfortunately was going more the current DC route of darkening the character. Batman v Superman, oh, what a dumpster fire that was. I didn't even watch the extended cut. Like, I know people who did, our buddy Aldo did, and props to him, but I was not going to sit through an additional 30 minutes of that movie, especially when I think it was either you or Aldo that told me, Romney, that it was just pointless. It didn't add anything to it. It was just meaningless nonsense.
Yeah, I'd assume it would be Aldo, because I never saw it, and that's because, and this is something I got into in Monster Clash when people have asked me about this, where with extended cuts, I'm always skeptical because it's more like, it's just a desperate cash grab. When it's a director's cut, there it's a case of, okay, well, there you're getting more of the intended vision of the film. When it's an extended cut, I kind of just wrote it off of, it's just, Warner Brothers trying to nickel and dime the viewer base into buying the Blu-ray for a film that a lot of people didn't watch.
Pretty much, yeah, and you're not wrong in that regard, because that's pretty much how it kind of came off. And then for Joss Whedon's Justice League, my initial complaint with it is I thought that there were some good things in it, but overall it needed more movies to flesh out the heroes that were already in it. We needed that Wonder Woman movie. We needed that Aquaman movie. We needed a Flash movie before that was even going to happen, and Warner Brothers rushed that as hard as they could because all that they were thinking about is, we want that Avengers money bad. And that was ultimately its downfall. Romney, you've kind of got into your thoughts about Batman v Superman, so why don't you go ahead and take the rest of them? So like Man of Steel and then the Whedon cut of Justice League.
Okay, well, this will definitely bring me back to my college days, because I was actually one of the weird outliers when it came to reviews of Man of Steel, because I actually liked Man of Steel. I kind of liked that it was kind of a bold and new take on Superman. This is coming from someone who saw stuff like Superman Returns that tried to emulate the Richard Donner formula, but kind of couldn't quite emulate it. But then saw a lot of people expecting it to basically be like a Christopher Nolan film. I kind of liked the fact that Snyder went in his own unique direction. There were some aspects of it that needed a bit of work, but it was a case of, okay, it's something new and different, and it's at least a unique take on it. And when I first saw Man of Steel, I kind of saw like, okay, well, we got The Dark Knight and the whole Nolan trilogy kind of showing what a modern take on Batman would look like. This complements it quite well as kind of a nice modern take on Superman. I mean, granted, I'm still a bit annoyed that Zack Snyder seems to hate the idea of things having color, because that's, I mean, especially given
Zack
that
Snyder and I like the color gray.
Yeah, especially given that he is so keen on trying to recreate comic panels as shot compositions, which I'm just like, dude, color exists. Use it.
Dude, there was a reason people called it Cod of Steel.
Yeah, and so in spite of those, I actually liked Man of Steel. I walked away from Man of Steel actually really enjoying it, because I thought, okay, this is a nice kind of refreshing take on it, and at least it was a case of, okay, at least it's not trying to copy the Marvel films, because this was around the time that Guardians of the Galaxy kind of broke me of the Marvel films. Of like, oh, all those films feel the same. At least this feels different. It may not be perfect, but at least it's trying its own thing. Batman v Superman, as I've already stated, irritated me, and not just because of, wasting the whole doomsday part of it. Another part of it is that it just reeked of desperation, and I get the feeling that a lot of it was probably due to executive meddling of, we've got to start planning these ideas of this shared universe. We got to start teasing Wonder Woman. We got to start teasing Batman. We got to start teasing this. And I'm just like, why?
Guys,
why?
There are two words you're going to hear a lot in this particular review, and that is executive meddling, because it's very prevalent through a lot of these films.
Yeah, which leads to, with Joss Whedon's Justice League, the theatrical cut that we all reviewed initially. Honestly, going into that one, it was less of, oh, I'm excited, oh, I'm not looking forward to it. It's just like, well, we've tracked this dumpster fire from its inception. Let's follow it through to its conclusion. And walking away from that, if I remember my opinions correctly, I'm kind of with you, where it was like, hey, this would have been a decent Justice League movie if we had more movies and if it was part of a separate cinematic universe that had a little bit more build-up. It kind of felt a bit reminiscent of the Justice League cartoon. It was almost kind of like, okay, it's almost like they saw episodes of the Justice League cartoons and tried to make a live-action version of that.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the Justice League cartoons, both Justice League and Unlimited, worked because they had years upon years upon years of build-up. And also goes back to that idea of executive meddling, where the tone was all over the place. It reeked of so much desperation, especially with backpedaling, where they were literally using scores from they were literally using Batman themes from the Danny Elfman movies, and they were literally using the parts of the John Williams Superman theme. It was desperation. And although there were some of the Whedonisms there, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is what people expect from it. It was kind of one of those, okay, as a Joss Whedon film, it was okay. If it was part of a much more coherent, cohesive cinematic universe, it would have been okay. And so with how that affected me going into this version, especially after some of the recent revelations about Joss Whedon and his style, like, not to get into too much detail, but knowing what I know now about what went on behind the scenes,
to sum it up, we stand with Ray Fisher.
Exactly. Knowing what I know now, I'm just like, okay, I no longer have respect for Joss Whedon as a creator.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, okay, well, the bar is set pretty low, and there have been some Zack Snyder films I've seen in the past that I liked. I mean, people may recall I gave a lot of high praise to his remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I thought was a good job. Of course, that was because he had James Gunn as a screenwriter, which makes a huge difference.
Well, and on top of that, I think, like, you and I have had kind of this discussion. I'm probably considered to be the more Joss Whedon fan of the panel, because, I had been watching him since the Buffy days, and so I liked the Whedonisms. I liked Avengers, but I will admit this right off the bat. After Age of Ultron is where his quality goes down quite a bit, because I've done this where I've watched Age of Ultron and then I've watched the original, and there's a lot of love put into that I could honestly argue wasn't in Age of Ultron. And at that point, it probably was very clear he wanted to be off of those movies. But even I've got to admit that, especially with what we're about to talk about, fuck Joss Whedon and the Joss Whedon cut. You murdered what was actually really good about the movie. And I love that people like to point out the whole Easter egg that he put in of the homeless man with the cardboard sign saying "I tried." And I'm sorry, but considering what Zack Snyder's cut looked like, no, you didn't. You didn't try in the slightest. You appeased whatever corporate overlord you had to appease.
Yeah.
This is better than you, Joss. Or you're better than this. And I can say that.
Yeah, and especially like that corporate interference, that very much, given that you could see it in the theatrical release.
Yeah.
Walking into this one, especially now coming off of it, I mean, it's a night and day difference. It really is.
It really is. A lot of the shots are... you don't realize up until you see the Snyder Cut just how murdered some of the shots were by Joss. And it's... As a Joss Whedon fan, it's disappointing. I like Joss's writing. He's a douchebag in real life. You didn't need to tell me that. I've seen Comic-Con interviews that show that he's a douche nozzle. You didn't need to show me that. But he could write well. And that was at least tolerable. He could do his job. I could deal with assholes in everyday life, but he could do his job. And no, not anymore. I've lost a lot of respect for him. So moving things along, Alex, your thoughts on Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and the Whedon cut?
So, Man of Steel, I didn't really see it when it came out, and I think I'm not even sure I've seen that movie all the way through, to be honest. I've seen a lot of it because it's on TV every so often.
Which one,
So
Man of Steel?
Sometimes I'll catch Man of Steel, yeah. So I'll catch bits of it here and there, but I don't think I've seen that all the way through.
I want to say we
ultimately,
took you to it, like me and my older brother took you to it, but I don't think we did.
No, you didn't.
No.
I did. So, yeah, and when I do see it on TV, I still can't get into it that much. There is some aspects about it I think I do like, but I think it's just finally about time I sit down and watch it all the way through to really give a better evaluation of it. But I don't know. I've always been kind of, weary of going into Man of Steel. I've heard your opinions, and I've seen bits of it on TV that I've never been that big into. I've never been that eager to jump into it.
I can't say I blame you. It's an interesting take. Like, as much as I've done 3 or 4 separate settings of Man of Steel, and I could still enjoy it for what I get out of it. But if somebody asked me like right off the bat, could you watch it today? And just going in fresh, I'd point them in the direction of another Superman movie, probably an animated Superman movie, because I think that they would get it a little bit better.
Yeah, honestly, like that's kind of where I'm at with Man of Steel as well, where not my favorite, honestly, in terms of like absolute favorite Superman movie, that would have to be the animated All-Star Superman, because that animated film pretty much understands Superman as a character.
That's the one where is it All-Star Superman where they had Kara and Kara gets abducted by Darkseid?
No. All-Star Superman is the one where Superman is dying from cancer, basically.
Okay, yeah. I can't remember. That one's a good one, in my opinion. That movie where they have Kara Zor-El and all that. It especially in the concept that this was back when Batman the Animated Series was still running, as well as Superman the Animated Series, and so you still had Kevin Conroy, and I can't remember the voice actor for Superman, but you were still able to pull the puns from that.
I think it was Tim Daly, I think was the voice of the...
That sounds about... Probably.
Yeah.
So, sorry, so Batman v Superman, Alex.
Yeah, Batman v Superman I really did not like. There are aspects of it I do like a little bit, some production-wise or storytelling-wise, but I think overall that movie was a big mess, and I really walked out of the theater pretty bitter over that, because I was just like, wow, that was way too long and way too convoluted, and this was a really bad point to try and really...
And I think you were sitting next to me because you saw me freaking out. when they would do something stupid. And I was sitting next to Rami, so I could attest to this. But really quick, Alex, I need you to confirm this, okay? Shay, you've seen Romney in his usual demeanor, right? Not really a mean dude, okay?
Correct.
Alex, how pissed was Romney when we walked out of that theater?
Yeah, I remember he was pretty angry back then.
I want to say visibly frustrated, but you know what? That doesn't hold a candle.
I mean, if people want a good, accurate depiction of what it looked like, basically, if anybody has seen Noah Antweiler's review of Highlander: The Source, where he literally has that segment where he goes, "No, not this way." That was literally me.
Yes.
Coming out of Batman v Superman was literally me. No, not this way.
The best comparison I want. Did you have a video review of? Oh crap! What is it that you hated? I think it was Lisa, or something like that. Where it was the whole. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was the whole concept of only using
the Scarlett Johansson one.
It might have been like where they were only or Lucy or so. It was Lisa or Lucy.
Lucy.
I can't remember if that was a written review or a video review, but you can just feel the hatred from it.
Yeah, I had both. I mean, like Lucy, Sabotage, the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween. Those are probably like 3 of the absolute worst films I've ever seen. Mordecai is like a close, shameful 4th, but yeah, there's been very few films that have made me that angry, and Batman v Superman was one of them, but that was less of, oh, this film was horrible and I wasted my money. It was more of, it was the nerd rage. It was the fanboy, like, why would you take this very well-written storyline? Yep. Yeah, granted, the storyline broke comic book death forever, but it's like, why? Why would you waste this storyline on the second frickin' movie?
But the reason I want to point this out is, like, especially with Shay here, is, like, he's a generally mellow dude, right?
Yes. I'm just gonna
picture that pissed off. Just straight up pissed off. That's what Batman v Superman did to him, and Alex is my witness. He saw him.
Wow.
Yeah, we all pretty much walked out of that with
Aldo was mellow, but he had seen it prior. And so at that point, he's like, I know what I was walking into. Yeah. And he did try to prepare us. I will give him that credit.
I think he kind of was also just kind of laughing at our reaction where he was just like, yep. That's how I felt. It's like, yep, I saw this coming. I knew this would happen.
Well, no, the thing that I should have laughed at before, but I didn't, was he insisted on sitting next to you, Romney, and I sat next to you, and then I had Alex on my other side. No, actually, you know what? I might not have had Alex on my other side. I think I might have been close to Aldo too, because him and me were giggling throughout the movie of just like how stupid things were getting. I'm either thinking of that or The Force Awakens. I don't like what there was a point where we couldn't have me and Aldo sitting next to each other because we would just giggle at the movie and it would annoy people. I can't remember which one, but anyway, so Alex, your thoughts on the Whedon cut?
The Whedon cut, I remember enjoying just marginally more, certainly marginally more than Batman v Superman. But yeah, I think like you guys have pretty much said, it's like we had enjoyment because the others had set such a low bar, but even then Batman we could still say there really needed to be a little bit more here. It was an alright effort, but it needed more, and there was definitely, it was fragmented. I was probably a little more forgiving of it just because I had been following a lot of the behind the scenes drama from the time Warner Brothers dumped Zack from Justice League.
Well, they didn't dump Zack. Zack left.
Well, it was a mix of both.
Yeah, it was a mix of both. But like a lot of people will probably correct us to say, well, his daughter did commit suicide, and she did.
Yeah, which was horrible timing, right? When it's like which I don't know. There's a lot of sort of rumor that they might have used that as an opportunity to kind of get him off of Justice League and try and do that haphazard repair job from Joss Whedon, which is pretty fucked up. So worse, I was okay with. I was okay with Justice League. I'm like, it could have been a lot better, but I guess them's the breaks.
Yeah. Okay, so Shay, you're the one who's walking in fresh here, so people don't necessarily know your opinions on these. Have you seen these movies, and what did you think of them? So Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and the Whedon cut of Justice League.
Gotcha. Can I add in Wonder Woman? Because I think Wonder Woman came out before Justice League.
It was after
Like
it.
it was.
no, it came out after.
It came out after.
Came out in,
you can
in
add it. I
June.
don't care. Like I'll talk about a good movie any day. But
Gotcha. Well, I know for me, like I did not watch Man of Steel. I was never the biggest Superman fan, so the movie just never appealed to me to actually see it. But I've heard a lot of like really like good things about it. Like I heard it was a good movie. My fiance likes it. He's like Man of Steel is probably one of the better DC movies that he had seen.
Okay.
So, Batman v Superman, I mean, I had heard the hype surrounding it before it was released. So I knew of a lot of people that were going to go watch it.
Yep.
I didn't watch it when it came out. I didn't watch it till it was on DVD, and my dad owned the extended cut, and we were at home one night and he's like, "Hey, have you ever seen Batman v Superman?" I said, "No." And he's like, "Well, let's watch it." I haven't seen either, but I bought the DVD. I said, "Okay, well, let's watch it." Next thing I know, my eyes closed. I woke up and the movie wasn't even over. Like we had fallen asleep and we woke up and it was still going. And my dad wakes up and my dad goes, I said to my dad, I said, "Did you like watch any of it?" He's like, "Nah." He said, his words were, "This movie is too damn slow. I fell asleep and woke up and it's still going and it still hasn't gotten to the good part yet." So it's like, I'm turning this off.
I mean, if you'd woken up and it was in the middle of the fight scene, maybe you would have been okay, but...
No, my dad was like, it was too much damn talking. That was his words. He's like, It's too much damn talking.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that.
So I had never seen it. And so then I think for me, before seeing like the Justice League movie, for me, like I had only seen Wonder Woman.
Okay.
That's why for me, like, I guess for me, I remember Wonder Woman coming out first because it came out during the summer.
It did actually. I just checked.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
did
came
it?
out in June. It came out in June, and Justice League came out in November. So it had been out for a while. Because I remember watching it with my mom.
because they used it to hype Justice League.
Yeah, because my mom was a huge Wonder Woman fan, and my mom like really wanted to go see it. And I had seen the previews. I was like, it looks really good, and so I was like, let's watch it. And I was like, Wonder Woman was amazing. I actually really enjoyed it. So it made me hype for Justice League. But then
Wonder Woman is a great movie.
Yeah, it was a great, like, I would say, honestly, that's one of the better, like, DC movies that I have seen. And I'm not the biggest DC fan. I'm definitely more a fan of Marvel. But then Joss Whedon's Justice League, I mean, honestly, it made me not care about characters that I needed to care about.
Yep.
Like, I didn't care about Cyborg because I didn't know his backstory. I only knew of Cyborg from Teen Titans. Like, I knew who he was, but I was like, I'm not, like, why should I
So
care
you
about
knew
this
cute and
character
cuddly
with his
character
backstory?
that ate pizza all the time and screamed booyah. And
Correct.
so you
So
didn't
I
know
was
the
like-
actual Victor Stone.
No, I didn't know, like, his backstory. I didn't understand why. And so the same thing with, like, well, with Aquaman, like, for me, they made Aquaman a little bit cooler just because I remembered the cartoon shows of Aquaman, and I was like, okay, he can talk to fish. So I'm like, okay, with Jason Momoa playing him, it makes him look a little bit cooler at least. And then when it came to Flash, I was like, it's another character that I don't know a lot about because he, as far as I had known, he hadn't been in any of the other movies that had came out. Whereas, like, at least with Avengers, the people that didn't have like their own solo movie at that point, at least were in other movies, at least as like a like Hawkeye, like he at least appeared in Thor. Natasha was in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I'm not for sure if that came out before.
No,
or
she was
after
also in Iron Man
Avengers.
too.
And she was in Iron Man as well. So
Yeah.
it's like, these characters were there. So it was like, I just didn't really care that much for it. And then plus with the fact with like Ben Affleck being Batman, but he hadn't had like a solo movie and everyone had wanted one. So it was like him playing Batman. I was like, okay, so it's not the Christopher Nolan Batman movies that I had watched before, like, and they're not even a part of it was just all over the place. But overall, I came into the DC universe a little bit differently. I hadn't watched Man of Steel. Batman v Superman put me to sleep. The only good one that I had seen was Wonder Woman. So I went into Justice like, okay, this might be good. Let me see. And then it wasn't. It still made me want to go see Aquaman, but I still was like, eh. And just
Okay.
the editing was weird because I know they had like with the reshoots, Henry Cavill had came back, but he had a mustache with the CGI the mustache off. So it
Yeah,
was really weird with his upper lip.
yeah, it's because the whole reason was because he was shooting the Mission Impossible movie at the time that
Yeah.
required him to grow out that mustache, not planning on these reshoots, and then they were doing these reshoots, and he's just like, well, I'm in the middle of shooting this other movie that needs the mustache. Yeah,
Yeah.
just this is why it's just one of those classic cases of, executives just, you need to know when to step back. I mean, I get it. There's times where you do want to step in, but just, yeah, that's a rant for a whole other episode.
Yeah, it just wasn't very good. I was like, it has its bad. It tried to be too comedic when it
Yeah.
didn't need to be. Like the lasso scene. Yeah, Martha. That's literally it.
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
That was just so weird. Like even now, when I like watch little like YouTube videos where they talk about Batman v Superman, and they're just like, I don't like Martha. Like thanks, like great.
Yeah, I mean,
I get they have the same name, but
I mean, that scene is so notorious that Warner Brothers themselves made fun of it in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Yes.
There's literally that scene where it's like, yeah, even they realize, yeah, this was kind of dumb. From what I've heard with Batman v Superman, and a lot of the people I've talked to about this, they say that reading the original screenplay that Zack wrote with the other writers, they say that this original screenplay is a much better way to experience it since, well, like with any production, things were changed, things had to be altered, and again, executive meddling.
Yeah, no, and ultimately, like, I wanted to bring that up because that's like the one thing that people take away from Batman v Superman is the Martha meme, and it's stupid. It's so stupid that when I was watching the Snyder Cut with my wife, as soon as somebody said Martha, I had to do it, and she's like, "What?" And immediately, like, it became a meme. Like anytime somebody would say Martha, including us, that I would immediately go, "Why did you say that name?"
See, that's when you turn it into a drinking game where, like, as you keep doing that line, you just get progressively drunker and drunker and drunker.
And the drinker has to say it, has to say the reply. So yeah, that's basically what kind of came from it. But now that we have all the perspectives in there, and by the way, Wonder Woman was badass, and nobody will tell me otherwise. It was actually really well done. I still get in debates with my brother though, because he still doesn't like how I can never remember the guy's actual name, but how Lupin looks as Ares. And look, I get it. He's weird, but he actually was a really good character to be able to play it. It's just when they CG him and put him behind the helmet that he looks really weird.
Yeah.
So I get that part. They really should have just put the helmet on and went with that. But yeah, let's get into what?
I was going to say, if there ever was a character that needed to look like Leonidas, it would be Ares.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, for crying out loud, as we're about to say, Zeus looked more like Leonidas than Ares did, and we'll get into that CG in a minute. But let's get into the meat of this. Zack Snyder's Justice League, all 4 hours of it. Just really quick, as a quick like it or like it, love it, hate it, want to destroy it kind of thing. Where are you at with it? I like it. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, I definitely am in the I like it camp. There are still some things about it that I have issues with. But again, compared to the theatrical cut that we got from Whedon,
yes.
I mean, like,
there's no comparison. It is so much better.
Yeah, this is the better film. Would it have helped Warner Brothers if this was the version that came out in theaters? Honestly, probably not. No. But at least here, it's like, oh, it's nice to actually have something that's actually, tonally consistent and actually.
And I've actually been getting into arguments with this really quick, and I kind of want to go over it really fast. Why do I not think that the Snyder Cut would have worked in theaters? And it's simply because 4 hours. 4 hours is a long time to get, and I get that some people are going to bring this up to me. Well, Harry Potter was 2.5 hours, and up until that point, kids had not sat in a theater for longer than 90 minutes. Okay, good point. Harry Potter made it so they could go an extra hour. Lord of the Rings was still very hard. And though, like, if you account for the Return of the King, which was the longest of them, it was 3.5 hours. And that was also just very difficult to do. And I remember around the same time Return of the King came out, Gods and Generals came out, a Civil War movie. And people did come and see Gods and Generals, but it was very clear that the audience that was coming to Gods and Generals were used to longer movies that had intermissions and all that, and the general movie-going crowd was not used to that. And so one of the things I will say, like, I've gotten into arguments about this. I do like the movie. You are not going to get people to sit for 4 hours to watch it. It wasn't going to happen. And frankly, considering how much it got murdered by Joss to just get it down to, what was it, 2.5 hours? It wasn't worth it.
2 hours.
Yeah.
The Whedon cut's only like just under 2 hours. So,
oh, is it? Yeah.
Really,
So
yeah, it really neutered it. Although wasn't Justice League meant to be? Wasn't it planned on being like a 2-parter movie, like Endgame was?
Not really, actually. No. Like there was like a Justice League, like Zack had a.
The rumor is that was the case, but we've since seen evidence saying they weren't going to do that, because if people are curious as to why, this was around the time when we were getting Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, when we got
Breaking Dawn
Part 1 and 2.
Part 1 and 2.
Mockingjay is like the last one that did that, and so in a lot of cases by that point people were not liking the whole 2-parter movie. I've even seen really competent arguments saying Deathly Hallows should have just been a big 3.5 hour movie and it would have been better. And I don't know how I feel about that, because again, this was catering to the Harry Potter crowd, and getting them to sit for 3.5 hours was a lot to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue Deathly Hallows, it was justified. It was when everyone else started copying it. And again, like, Breaking Dawn didn't need to be 2 parts. Attack on Titan especially did not need 2 parts.
That's right, the Japanese one was 2 parts.
Yeah.
That didn't even deserve a part 1. It shouldn't have been done.
Honestly, I still need to actually get copies of the movie.
Don't knock that Attack on Titan. It has great Metal Gear references.
Oh my god.
Honestly,
such a bad movie.
I still need to get like copies of the movies and put together my ideal version of the single movie edit. It's just that kind of thing.
And just for the record, Aldo, if you're out there in the ether, thank you for suggesting that we watch that movie.
It was fun, I will say.
Yeah, we had fun together.
Watch it with you guys.
Yeah. And so,
No, go ahead.
And so it wasn't even so much that, everyone is like, because Deathly Hallows, it was justified. It was a case of, okay, this book is really long, longer than all the others in the series. We need to split this up in order to do it faithfully. But everyone else copying it when they didn't need to. I mean, I think honestly what broke it was the Hobbit movies, where it was like, okay, we have all these other movies splitting into 2 parts, and then the Hobbit broke it by splitting a very teeny book across 3 movies.
Yeah, pretty much. And in a lot of cases, and we've even made this argument of they should have just done 2. But sorry, we cut you off, Shay.
I mean, I think that for me, like with the other movies that did like a part 1 or part 2, they at least had a bit of a cliffhanger to like make it so that you wanted to go back and see a part 2.
Yeah.
At least in some ways, like I have never read the Twilight books. I've read the first one and then was done, and I've only seen the movies. So like with Breaking Dawn Part 1, when I went into it, like I only watched the movie. So when it ended on a cliffhanger enough where it was like you wanted to go see the second one. Granted, I had never read the book, so I didn't know what was going to happen. The same with like Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows, and like Mockingjay.
And with Breaking Dawn, they actually changed the ending. So at that point, you had something inventive to go see.
Correct. And then I think for like with Justice League, I like with watching that 4-hour movie, I couldn't think of where they could pause it, like end it to make it where you would like want to see a second part.
Yeah. Like I was thinking about that same thing where maybe, and this would be like if they did want to do it, like the only maybe would be maybe ending on the point with them contemplating using the mother box to bring back Superman. That would probably be, if I were the one making the decision, there is at least like a stopping point of like, okay, you've got the team together, they have the mother box, this is what we're leading up to, thinking, okay, like in
a lot of cases, that conference where they say like we're gonna bring back Superman, that would have been the cliffhanger to end it on. And then at that point going from there. But at that point I would say add another half hour in there of stuff that could have happened because we needed that.
Yeah, it just would have been weird as a movie that's like a team-up movie where you're introducing a few good characters, like, and then splitting it into two.
Yes.
Like that's what would have made it weird, and people like, why split this into two parts? It would be like if they split Avengers, like the first Avengers, into two movies. Like people would be like, I don't get it. Whereas with Endgame, like, you know, with Infinity War and Endgame, like you had all these characters established. So when they ended it how they did, it was on a cliffhanger and you wanted to come back and see the second one and so on and so forth.
Yeah, they gave you a motivator to come and see it because, like, because here's the thing, like, I'm just going to assume that there was a hero in there, Shay, that died. Like, I'm going to throw out Black Panther. I don't know if that was that for you, but when you saw him fade away, you're just like, I have to come back and see this again. Right. Or I have to come back and see the conclusion to this. I have to see whomever that was, if that was Black Panther, awesome. But, I mean, I know, for example, my eldest nieces, they were all heartbroken when they saw, I'm not, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, and when they saw that happen, and it actually was to a point where they couldn't watch Infinity War for a year until after they'd seen Endgame, and then they liked watching them together, kind of thing, because it worked out. But you didn't have that guarantee with Justice League. Especially, I would actually dare argue that, you know, you brought up the argument of, like, you should have cut Avengers into two parts. Well, it was cut. It was cut into several parts. And
no.
Yeah.
That would be like if they had to cut like the first Avengers movie as they had set everybody up.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was cut into several parts.
Yeah.
And it was like they were all individualized movies with their own arcs. And if the Snyder Cut has taught me anything, it's that I actually wanted more movies out of this. Mm-hmm. Because we had actual really cool story arcs that were happening for every single hero in this movie. And one of my gripes with it is I wish that we'd gotten movies for them to be able to tell these stories better, or not better, but like flesh them out even more, and then have the culmination be like Avengers, where they're all like all of their story arcs are crossing into the Justice League movie. And then you get resolution for all of it, and then you can go tell new stories with them.
Yeah, that's something that kind of leads into one of the gripes I have about this version of Justice League, because there are definitely, you can tell that there were some aspects of what they were trying to do, what they were trying to build up to, but some of those decisions I take issue with.
Yeah.
And when we get to that, there's another Romney rant coming.
Yeah. We'll get into the negatives in a little bit, but I kind of want to get into the positives first and give this movie its credit. Because it does deserve that. When you compare this to the Whedon cut, you do not understand how much stuff was taken out, and in a lot of cases, how much continuity was lost because of it. I remember people endlessly making fun of Steppenwolf from the Whedon cut of Justice League, that he just didn't look imposing. He didn't really have an arc. That nobody had any reason to care about him.
He wasn't even that memorable.
No, he wasn't even memorable. And then you have the Snyder cut of Steppenwolf, and he is so much better.
Yeah,
He
actually has personality and actually a reason. For lack of a better term, you actually are given a reason to actually care about his story.
And because of the multiple conflicts, he feels like an enemy that they can't take on. Because he takes them on 3 or 4 times, he wins. 75% of the time.
Yeah, because I remember with the theatrical version, I didn't even remember Steppenwolf. It was just like, just typical big bad. Whereas here it's like, okay, we actually have an actual character with an actual goal, personality.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, oh, this is where all the characterization and the stakes and the backstory was hiding.
Exactly. And actually, and to this day, I've since seen the Whedon cut just to confirm this, but to me, Steppenwolf always felt so much more different in the Whedon cut than this one. Like, he's a big, bulky alien, and the way that I remember him from the Whedon cut is he's just a taller human. He's basically like Sauron from the Lord of the Rings, is how they made him to be. But then we get to see his alien version in Snyder Cut, and he looks so much better. I especially love the armor that is just glistening off of him and adapting to what he needs. Like, if he gets angry, it spikes out. I especially loved when he actually has the scene with Darkseid and immediately, like, the armor recedes and the entire upper section of his body is seen. I'm just like, okay, that tells me, like, I love this emotionally responsive armor that tells me that he has to be submissive for his Lord Darkseid. And this is coming from one of two people where me and Romney both said this, that because of Batman v Superman, Zack did not deserve Doomsday. He definitely didn't deserve Darkseid. And holy fuck, were we wrong.
Yeah,
holy fuck, were we wrong.
Yeah, I'm willing to admit that, because at least here it was a case where, okay, they gave Darkseid the kind of build-up he needed.
Yeah.
And again, I look at this, I'm just like, okay, you built up Darkseid, you gave this sense of anticipation. Why couldn't you have done that with Doomsday? And again, probably executive meddling is probably the answer.
I will guarantee you that's the answer. I'll guarantee it, because this was Zack's vision of Darkseid. And I actually have been having arguments with a few people because I love Desaad's performance as well. Desaad just feels, this is the weird way that I would put it. Desaad's interpretation feels very true to the comics. Darkseid's interpretation feels very accurate to the cartoon version. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but Desaad doesn't really get a feature in the comics. And everybody knows Darkseid from Superman the Animated Series and also from the Justice League Animated Series. And so he feels like that because that's what's familiar to them. And that's why I love both performances. Because they were able to show kind of the lore of the DC universe, but also show what people know and love. So, other positives that people want to bring up with this, or do I need to keep talking?
Well, the big thing that I will definitely mention is that the tone is a lot more consistent compared to the Whedon cut, where it's very much clear, okay, this film knows what it's trying to do, knows what it's trying to be. Granted, it does get a little self-indulgent with the multiple montages set to, oldies music, for lack of a better term. But it's at least there. It's a case of, okay, at least the emotions aren't all over the place. It's not trying to force itself to be something it's not meant to be. It's like, okay, it has a nice, solid emotional core to it that feels consistent. That's definitely something that I can say about it. And that's definitely, it doesn't suffer from any sort of tone whiplash. And even the moments that are humorous feel earned. They don't feel like, oh, we're throwing this in because it's a Whedonism. It's more like, oh, hey, this feels like natural banter or natural interactions between these characters.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel forced.
And I think one of the issues that we had with the Whedon cut compared to this was that, again, because of the amount of time that they had to work with, you hadn't established these relationships, so it didn't make sense for these characters to have rapport with each other. This movie found a way to be able to do it and make it seem natural, because in a lot of cases, they make Cyborg and the Flash look like they've been friends for years after they've only met like once or twice.
Yeah.
So I love that aspect. And in essence, what I kind of wish would have happened is if we'd gotten expanded movies on this, if you didn't get a Cyborg movie, maybe you could do a Flash movie where you start up that friendship. And then you have the lead up into him becoming Cyborg. Maybe he's even the villain of that movie. And then the Flash can kind of turn him and get him to think about things properly. Because you could have done that and it would have been great. And you would have had that rapport already.
Yeah, sadly, that was the original plan, was to have Cyborg play a prominent role in the upcoming Flash movie.
Was it?
But
okay.
Yeah, he got removed. Ray
got
Fisher,
removed.
after
Yeah,
he made his allegations against Whedon. He got removed.
Yeah, against Whedon and Walter Hamada were like the two key people he was going against, as well as a few other key people at Warner Brothers and DC. But the two big ones were Whedon and Hamada. And because of that, Ray was basically fired and written out of Flash,
which is sad because he actually was a really good Cyborg.
And he'll no longer play Flash again. He won't play Cyborg anymore.
There's
no more Cyborg.
Yeah, which is a real shame because he did such a good job in this film. I mean, it's nice that and especially considering it's like, oh, it's nice that we actually get to see who this character is and where he comes from and why he's in this story. Something we didn't get in the theatrical cut. And so
I think this is something that we would all agree with. Like, the arcs that we get with these characters are believable. Like, I will agree. Cyborg looked like a douchebag at the beginning when he was hacking to be able to give the starving mother some money, because, you know, we all know that that's wrong and he shouldn't have gone about it that way. But then he goes through that arc and we understand like why he stands where he does at the end of the movie, and it makes us want to care about him.
Yeah. And even then, at the same time, I liked that sequence with the hacking thing. Granted, it could have been, I would have taken out some of the voiceover explaining the powers, but I like what it showed that, okay, this is someone, as we even see in some of the scenes prior to him becoming Cyborg, it's like, okay, he's the kind of person who does these things to help people out, where it's like, oh, he hacked his friend's grades to help her pass a class at the college course because of what happened to her. It's like, okay, it shows us that, hey, it kind of gives us an idea of, okay, this is still a core part of who he is prior to him becoming Cyborg. It's just now he's able to do this on a much larger scale. It kind of establishes that.
And it's a great story arc, basically hearkening back to with great power comes great responsibility. That's why I'm saying, like, it wouldn't be a stretch for me to put Cyborg as the villain of a Flash movie and have him doing all this stuff. And then, you know, you have like some catastrophic event where, because of what he was doing meddling in the World Wide Web, he creates a problem that the Flash has to come in and fix. And then you can have that moment between them going, you know, you were doing some good things and you were coming at this from the right angle, but in turn, because you did this, you also created this problem. And so you have to keep that in mind the next time.
Yeah, alternately, I wouldn't really go the route of maybe him being like a straight up villain. It could even just be a case where maybe it could be that classic case of him him trying to do something that he thinks is good. Could it be less of, oh, he's like a villain, and more just like, oh, I was a bit short-sighted in trying to do this thing. I didn't realize it would have this massive ripple effect.
And the way that I would actually take it is, have you seen Justice League, or not, Young Justice Season 3? Where they... So their Cyborg interpretation is interesting, and that's why I would paint him as the villain, is because they're going with the whole Mother Box origin, and I think the original origin was like Silas Stone made the parts. But in that...
with continuity, because it gets confusing.
But with the Mother Box origin, what they did in Young Justice was basically say that he doesn't, like, he has a struggle with control, because the Mother Box is a superior piece of technology that can take him over, and so he has like these blackouts where he'll basically kind of go all Borg and try to assimilate things. And then he wakes up, he's like, what the fuck? You know, what did I do? And so at that point, when he's hacking and all that, my catalyst here would basically be the Mother Box waking up inside of him and trying to take over. And so at that point, it wouldn't be him as the villain. It would be the Mother Box within him that was trying to take over and trying to either call out to Darkseid or try to create a unity kind of thing.
I mean, alternately, another good example of a Cyborg sort of storyline that I liked was from the Teen Titans cartoon, where he has like this limiter thing that kind of shows, oh, here's your maximum output limit. And the whole point of this episode is him kind of running into the idea of, oh, well, I'm mostly machine. Machines have set limits. It's not like I can just surpass them. But then by the end of the episode, he kind of surpasses those limits and realizes, hey, yeah, I may be mostly machine, but I can still surpass my limitations. I'm not limited.
Like he goes towards the artificial end of surpassing the limits, and then he realizes he has natural ways to be able to do it. Which I like. Like, I'm not knocking the Teen Titans Cyborg. I like it I like him as a character.
Yeah, it's just, again, real shame that we won't see any more Ray Fisher Cyborg, because
no kidding.
Warner Brothers is a bag of dicks.
No kidding.
And it was such a good story that they put, that Zack Snyder did. Like, it made me care about Cyborg, since he didn't have like a solo movie at all. Like, it was good to see like his backstory, the relationship that was like between him and his mom, like, and with her, like her death, and then how that relationship with him and his dad as well, and how it had that arc of like they hated each other, and then like towards the end of the movie he actually like showed that he still like really did care about his dad, and they had some sort of relationship there, even though it was strained for a while. And we didn't see that in the Joss Whedon thing. Joss Whedon cut, he was just there.
Well, that's one of my biggest issues with the Whedon cut, is everybody looks so negative, so depressed, so pessimistic. And I'm not saying that they aren't depressing in this movie. A lot of the cool part is a lot of them start that way, and then we get an optimistic turn that is at least optimistic for that character. You know, Cyborg starts from the angle of like, how am I going to live my life? My football career's over, all that stuff, which is stuff he's dealt with in the comics, to eventually just saying like, you know what? Yeah, Victor Stone is gone, but that's okay because now I'm me, and now I can do even more with what is given to me, and now he embraces being Cyborg.
Yeah, that goes into another aspect that people kind of forget with Snyder's approach with this, is that particularly with Batman, people think, oh, this is like a fresh Batman. No, this is a Batman who had been doing his thing in Gotham for 20 plus years. So this
was it 20? I thought that they had established it as like 10 plus years.
Yeah,
in 30. I thought I heard 30 years.
It was 20 years because there was the line of dialogue. I think it's when he's recruiting. It's either when he's recruiting the Flash or when he's trying to talk to Aquaman at the beginning, where he's just like, "Oh, you dress up as a bat." And he's just like, "Yeah, it's worked for 20 years."
Oh, that's right. Yeah, in the Nordic Village. Yeah, where he says that to him.
I also remember Jim Gordon saying a number, like when they were talking about like the weird sketches of the fear monsters.
That's right. Yeah, we have like a line of behavior for him, and he doesn't act like this.
You know, Jim Gordon, like he's been fighting crime here for like 20 or 30 years, whatever it was.
Yeah, because they had the sketch of the parademon, and it looked like Batman.
Yeah.
And so that's an aspect of it that I think that's kind of plays a role here, is that because Flash and Cyborg are basically the new kids on the block, where they're still kind of new to the game, and even Superman to a certain extent, whereas Batman and Wonder Woman are kind of the old guard, where they both basically have been fighting the good fight for a long time. Like in Wonder Woman's case, more than 5,000 years. In Batman's case, like 20 years. And so those two are very much like kind of the old grizzled veterans having to help rear these newbies in the arena. Aquaman's kind of in the middle, where he's still kind of like, yeah, I still do good, but
he's been established as he's been doing stuff for a while, but he isn't like, it isn't the first movie. He hasn't embraced who he is. Exactly. So I like that concept. I also like that they took the Justice League cartoon kind of angle of like, okay, in order to recruit these heroes, we have to take different approaches. Like, Bruce, you're going to work being able to recruit the Flash, but I have to go and do Cyborg because I'm going to relate better. I like the fact that Wonder Woman was able to tell him that, and that Bruce wasn't immediately going, no, I'll do all this myself, because that's an annoyance I have with the Bruce Wayne character. And so at that point, I like the fact that this movie went out of its way to say that there are people that Bruce would listen to.
Especially given here that they established that this is Bruce being afraid after everything that happened with the death of Superman and the warning he got from Luthor at the end of Batman v Superman, where this is him like, oh crap.
But I have to say this really quick. Who wants a fucking Batfleck movie now? I want it.
Day one.
No, we've been there, but now I want it more than ever. And I'm not saying I need an origin. I've gotten into this argument with people. I don't need an origin story. Okay? We've heard this so many times that we all make fun of it from Batman v Superman. Okay? We don't need that. All I need is for you to show him 10 to 15 years into doing the job. Basically, what I'm asking for you to do is to do Batman the Animated Series Batfleck form, because it would work. Ben, I will at least give this credit to a lot of people that don't give him this. He has played both characters flawlessly. He gets Batman, he gets Bruce Wayne. Usually, you get one of the two. He was able to do both. And this, above all else, makes me want a fucking Ben Affleck Batman movie. And he's saying no.
Yeah,
damn it, Ben!
I mean, I can't say that I blame him, though. He was basically warned because from what I've read, he basically kind of became an alcoholic again while working on Batman v Superman and Justice League, so much so that his agent basically said, if you sign up to do more of these movies, it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and I get that concept, but man, I like, he got the character, he got what he needed to do to be able to play it, and I really wish that if we didn't have that side effect, that he could come and do it again, because he would be, in my opinion, the most acknowledged best Batman of all of it, which is funny considering how many people made fun of him when he was cast in Batman v Superman.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of made the joke, and I even made the prediction of, okay, well, this could be another George Clooney, or this could be another Michael Keaton, because people forget when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman, everybody thought it was a bad idea.
Yeah, a
because he was
comedian
known
playing
for-
Batman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, especially when you consider that Tim Burton initially wanted Bill Murray to play Bruce Wayne, which, granted, I can kind of see, but it's kind of one of those, yeah, Michael Keaton wasn't popular, but now he's regarded as one of the greatest Batman actors. Ben Affleck, it was kind of the same case, where everybody was like, oh, are we really sure? Especially considering that the last time prior to that he had played a superhero, it was in Daredevil, which, again, I like it, but that's because
I like
I
it
was
too.
a kid when it came out. And
I like it too.
I like the Ben Affleck Daredevil. The Jennifer Garner Elektra, well, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Indeed. But yeah, point being, with Ben Affleck, it was another case where, hey, we were all pleasantly surprised. And even if he doesn't necessarily play Batman again, I definitely would want to see him direct a Batman movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, if he's not willing to put on the cowl, well, you've got Robert Pattinson. We've got this first Batman movie. If the Robert Pattinson Batman movie does well enough, maybe have Ben Affleck write and direct the sequel.
It would actually be really cool to have Ben direct it, because then at that point he can kind of point the actor in the right direction to be able to play both roles. There is one thing I want to address really quick, and I'm gonna single out Shay here, because this is one of the biggest complaints that the Snyder Cut has gotten, and that this scene should be removed from the Snyder Cut.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the introduction to the Flash. So for those who have not seen it, basically there's a scene where Barry Allen, because that's who Ezra Miller is playing, he's trying to get a job, and it just so happens that he passes a young Iris West. I can't remember the actress's name off the top of my head, but he's going to go and get a job as a dog walker. And it turns out that this truck driver accidentally drops his Carl's Jr. burger. Nobody will ever tell me that isn't a Carl's Jr. burger, because it is. And he tries to pick it up, and in turn creates mayhem throughout Central City, and pretty much runs into Iris West's car, and the Flash has to come in and save her. And the complaint about this scene is that it is the most leery, date rapey scene of the whole movie. Shay, your thoughts on that? Is it that creepy?
Personally, I didn't find it creepy. To me, what made it creepy was the music. Like, that's what made it creepy. Like, I would have been okay with that. Like, I'm okay with the scene overall. I think it's just the music. And I understand, like, you know, he's fast and, like, things slow down. But I was tired of the slow motion at that point.
Well, it doesn't help that Zack Snyder's freaking meme of all movies is slow motion.
I mean, because of the fact that at that point he had used slow motion in all the other characters' introductions, that when it happened, like, I remember saying to my fiance, like, is it always going to be slow motion? Because I'm tired of the slow motion. Like, move it along. It's a 4-hour movie. I don't need all the slow motion.
Shay, I had the exact same reaction.
Yeah.
So like,
Same
for
here.
me, like, the scene itself wasn't bad. I didn't care. I enjoyed actually seeing him, like, save the girl. That was fine. It was just the music and the slow motion that threw me off. I was like,
I'll grant you him stroking her hair when she's motionless. It's weird, but I'm gonna more give that towards the Ezra Miller Flash than I am anything else.
I mean, I feel like, you know, it's weird, but it's like they established, though, even like before that happened, that they had an attraction to each other. Like,
yes.
He walks through the door, he looks at her, she's looking at him, goo goo gaga eye. She gets in her car, he's still looking at her as she in the car, she looking at him, also not looking where she going when she driving either. And so it's like, you could tell they had some sort of attraction to each other. So to see him do that to her hair, I mean, yeah, it comes off a little creepy, but she don't know what's happening either.
No.
All she knows is that she's flying through the air.
Guys,
someone just hit her
Barry
car.
Allen is the speedster of speedsters. This is why they have to do that. Like, this is the one where I will give Zack the credit. He needed to show just what the Speed Force does to Barry Allen. And so at that point, I'll give you that. It's a little long and it's a little Zack Snyder-y. I was laughing by the end of it, especially when he picked up the hot dog.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would have been okay with the slow motion if he would have used it just for him, because it makes sense. But with the other characters before him and using slow motion,
yeah,
like, come on, they move at regular speed like me and you. So
Yeah.
I don't need to see them in slow motion.
I have a
Flash,
complaint with the Ezra Miller Flash, but this scene's not it.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I did find the scene kind of creepy, but for me, like looking at that scene, I just look at this and I'm just like, honestly, this type of gimmicky sequence was much better in Days of Future Past. That's what I just kept thinking. Where I'm just like, or I just look at this and I'm just like, Days of Future Past did this whole gimmick of
because Pietro in that movie was a snarky bastard, and at this point, all we had seen of Ezra Miller's Flash at this point was that he was a recluse. He was very keep to himself. Yes, he had the crush on Iris. There was an attraction, but it's played more in the Peter Parker sense, where he's not gonna really do anything about it, and so that's where I'll give you the credit. It does look kind of creepy, but only from that aesthetic.
And a large part of it is that scene, and going in with the frustrated with the slow-mo, that scene, it needed to be cut down a little bit. I mean, I get what
totally
he's trying to go for, but if they shortened that sequence a little bit, maybe not dwell on the like slow motion fixation of Iris West as much. I mean, have it there, but it's kind of like that scene was like a few minutes too long.
Still need to pick up the hot dog.
Like picking up the hot dog and stuff like that was fine.
I'm fine with it. It made me giggle.
It's just pacing wise, that scene needed to be trimmed down a bit because it was very much okay. We get it. He's the speedster, but although you're showing the slow motion, you still need to establish, hey, this is still very fast. It very much was one of those. Okay, I get what you're going for. Slow it down a little bit. Give us some sort of a context to the fast speed. Don't just have it be like, oh, it's like a full-on slow-mo thing. It's like, hey, have the short slow-mo moments of him like pulling her out, showing what he's doing.
I would have liked to have taken like maybe, I don't know, a minute or two out of that and add that into other speedster sections within the movie. Like, for example, where he's going up and down the stairs and he's trying to make sure that everybody gets out. It would have been cool to see him in slow motion, just running up those stairs, checking for parademons and running back down, checking for parademons, just to show like, this is how fast he is. They cannot compare to him. And it would have been a better showcasing of that power than the typical, like, I've got to save somebody from a disaster. Kind of thing.
Honestly, I think they probably should have just cut out that slow-mo stuff from the earlier parts and saved it for, well, the climax of the film where it actually would have been
because,
a bit of a payoff.
Because they kind of make it out to be the Iris West scene is not him flexing his true ability. And those scenes are much better showcasing that. So it would have been better to be able to do that instead of having her brush her hair. It just would have been a better idea for him to just put her down and then go in there and finish his job interview. That's kind of my beef with that. But so sorry, I didn't mean to cut into too much here, but I also want to bring up just the tonal shift for Aquaman in this movie and also for Superman. Holy crap. Like these Superman isn't necessarily guilty of this, but Aquaman in the Whedon cut is depressing as all hell. And it's simply because he sees a situation that he can't handle and he immediately wants to run away. And I get it. You're trying to show a mortality factor with him, but it just doesn't come off very well. And what they did with him in the Snyder cut by basically like, he doesn't want to fight, but he sees the reason why he has to. I thought was a much better take on Jason Momoa's Aquaman compared to the Whedon cut.
Yeah, it definitely showed a much more solid arc in that regard, where it was less of, oh, he's just a nihilist, and more just like, oh, well, he deep down wants to help people, but it's very much that classic case of him wanting to help people, but also being afraid to open up, which kind of was a recurring theme throughout the whole thing. You could have even
used that in his arc to the Aquaman movie, because I totally would have believed that the whole incident with Black Manta happened before the Justice League movie. And so he was struggling with that. And then you could have immediately gone into the Aquaman movie with his optimistic take.
Because I think that pretty much goes into the theme, because, I mean, you have Batman first of all, having to come out of his shell with like, hey, I need to put a team together. And then you have it where you've basically got all of these different metahumans that are all reclusive, having to basically allow themselves to connect with one another in order to actually do what needed. It served that theme with when looking at Jason Momoa's characterization, that theme of, hey, no one is an island, no one can save the world alone.
Nope.
That's kind of it's almost like that's kind of what the theme of the film is hey, nobody can do this on their own.
And especially also with Superman. I don't know about you, Romney, but I actually shed a tear when he had that scene. Granted, I'm not a big fan of the black suit. I've never really been. I like the traditional colors of Superman, but that scene where basically recreating the Man of Steel moment where he does his first foray into flight and taking all of the optimistic quotes from both his fathers, from Jor-El and from Jonathan Kent, and basically building a much more positive Superman. I shed tears. I'm like, fuck, Zack, you get it now. This was my problem with the Man of Steel. You embraced, unfortunately, because it was Nolan, you embraced the negative too much. And now you get why people love Superman. And that is such a touching moment that I wished had been reached 2 to 3 movies ago. Oh my gosh, like that was such a wonderful moment. I especially loved when he snuck up on Alfred and he's just the nice farm boy. And then eventually he comes back in there, and it's not that you have to, because I love the positive scenes in the Whedon cut of Superman. I like when he's talking to the Flash. It's optimistic, okay? I like that. But what they did here, where he basically he puts his go-to-work face on and starts punching the crap out of Steppenwolf, it makes sense too. Because he knows when he needs to be the farm boy, and he knows when he needs to be business face. Kind of thing. And it works really well. And after that, he is optimistic with all of them. And he's like, you all did great. I loved it. This is the Superman I've been wanting since Man of Steel. This is the guy that I wanted to see more stuff on, especially with having Henry Cavill, because he looks good as Clark. He looks good as Superman, and he can play them both really well. And not in the weird way that he was in Batman v Superman. That bathtub scene will never leave my brain.
Yeah, well, for me, it wasn't the bathtub scene. It was just, them shoehorning in elements of, the Superman mythology that they failed to establish in Batman v Superman with the whole...
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember that annoying scene with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor was like, oh, Bruce Wayne meeting Clark Kent, as if it's some big deal, even though they haven't really established that he was that great of a journalist in the universe of Batman v Superman, especially given that it's heavily implied that he's basically the Daily Planet's sports reporter and not, a major
No, at this
reporter
point, he would have been Lois Lane's lackey. And so at that point, it would have been a better introduction for Lex Luthor to do Lois Lane, Bruce Wayne. And him having that issue because he likes Lois, and, because Bruce has the reputation of being a playboy kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I will say. All of these arcs are amazing as far as I'm concerned. Even Steppenwolf and his arc to try and get himself back into Darkseid's favor is so much better presented in this than Steppenwolf was in the original movie. So with that being said, are there any other positives that we want to point out before we get into our critiques of it?
Well, one last thing I would like to mention, and this was something that bothered me with the theatrical cut that I really do like. The music. The music, it has a nice, consistent flow to it. You have the nice recurring themes for each of the characters.
Some of the songs were weird. Like, the song choices were weird, but the score was good.
Yeah, like the score. Like, I'm talking like the original score, not necessarily, the remixed oldies music that Snyder is fond of for all of his slow motion sequences, but like the actual score part of it, I really liked, because there it's like, okay, this feels like music that is all part of the same movie and not ripped from other Warner Brothers DC movies in a bid to try to backpedal, years and years of work. And so I will give it credit. Some of the music, especially during the first major fight scene where they're trying to rescue all the people that had been taken by the parademons, the score in that scene was really, really good and really, really well planned out. And so that's definitely one other thing I do want to give this version credit, is that, hey, the music at least feels like it's all part of the same movie. It feels like there's an actual thought and intention to how the music is used, and it worked. It worked really well.
And one of the things I think also makes it work really well is that it's interchangeable. You could easily put some of the score in the Snyder cut into Superman the Animated Series, and I think it would work. Because it actually kind of has those same uplifting themes as well as heroic themes when it needs to have that. One other positive that I'd also want to bring up, because we haven't really talked about it, is the prologue scene. I love how that was done. Being able to show humans and Amazons and Atlanteans all working together against Darkseid, and also being able to showcase the gods of Olympus, being able to work with them, and all of them understanding, what's at stake here. Is that if the mother boxes come together, our world as we know it will cease to exist. And understanding why, like, I know a lot of people make the joke of the Lord of the Rings, the last of lions, of men and elves. And it looks a lot like that, but it needed to look like that because this was Darkseid we were talking about. The man with the endless army.
I mean, there's a reason that part of the story was titled The Age of Hero.
Yes.
That's kind of what it's going for. It went for that sort of mythic quality. It's like, hey, this is the age of myth, the age of the old gods, the last time that all the various forces on Earth were unified against a common threat. It worked for what it was trying to establish.
And especially considering that they actually establish better of why they did with the mother boxes what they did. Like the Amazons used their magic to seal up the mother box in their cube, and then they put it in the dome guarded by 30 bajillion Amazons ready to shoot at it. Okay. And then you had the Atlanteans basically putting it in a place where it was guarded endlessly, where I want to say the Whedon cut kind of showcased both of those as being not guarded because nobody had been there for years or for thousands of years. And this one actually said, no, these are active things that they're watching for. But I still love the fact that the humans, they got given all this responsibility and their response was dig a hole.
I mean,
honestly,
hole. If it was considering the time period, it was probably a case of, that's probably the only thing that man could think of. It's like, we don't have the fancy magics and stuff that the Atlanteans and the Amazons have. So what else can we do? It's like, well, we can either build something and put it in, or we can bury it.
Yeah, bury it. Let people forget it.
I think that's what me and my fiance laughed about a lot. We were like, so there's 3 of these. There's 3 of these mother boxes. We're like, so they get the Amazonians, they get theirs, they get the other one. Man's is the last one, but it's hiding underground, like 2 feet, inch of dirt. My fiance laughed about this so much. He's like, what's the last box to find? And it's hidden in the dirt. And when he saw them buried in a hole, he's like, we dump dead bodies deeper than they dug that hole.
These were jokes that me and my wife were making too. She's like, are you kidding me?
Coffins are 6 feet underground. They said, you dug 2 feet. And I was like, yeah. When people even would do their business in the ground, they would dig deeper than that. And I was like, and he was like, and we're the last box to find? He said, you done lost their mind.
See, I like how Andrea put it, where she was just like, what? Did you appoint the laziest man in your army to dig that hole? And then you just said, good enough. And tossed it in.
And we laughed about it even more because of the fact that, then they show that they find it. And then when Cyborg has it, he also digs another hole. And because it's like, really? You dig a second hole?
Yeah.
They came and found it, and you dig it in another hole, 2 feet. He's like,
well, and he put it, and the other part too is he put it at where his grave is supposed to be, but they neglect to mention who's next to him.
Exactly.
And they don't even kind of state, because, okay, I'm a little bit older, so at that point I kind of understand how big these vaults are, and they didn't really accurately portray this, but the way that he punched that hole in there, he definitely did damage to his mom's grave. He definitely did. And so it's like, thanks, Vic. I'm sure she appreciated that.
It was just hilarious. My family just couldn't believe it. He was just like, really? He's like, Amazonians got all those warriors. He said, and they took them forever. They got their box. They got, Aquaman's box from under the water.
At least do what Captain America did, where they had this elaborate temple guarding the Tesseract.
Yeah, no wonder the Nazis found it as easily as they did.
Yeah, well, I would actually say the Nazis tried compared to whoever dug out that mother box.
Well, now you know.
But I mean, that's literally what it was. Just funny. It's just like, it's like, so the Nazis found it because it was just in a hole.
Yeah.
Then the Allies got it.
Oh yeah, that's right, because the Nazis did find it in Justice League too. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's literally like, yep, found by the Nazis. Then when the Allies won the war, they found it, and then that's how it ended up at Star Labs.
Exactly. So I mean, I giggle at it, but that was a great moment. It's just like, we have all this elaborate ways to be able to guard it. Humans, dig a hole.
See, that's when someone just needs.
Yeah.
See, we did our job.
Yeah, someone just needs to, recreate that specific scene just, with Minecraft characters. Just recreate that scene in Minecraft.
Oh my gosh, I would love to see this. Just the
What if-
journey of the human that dug the hole.
What would have been like even better is if they would have like shown them digging like a hole to put their dead in, and someone's like, "No, dig it deeper. What about this one? Okay, that's fine. Just 2 feet. That's
Well,
fine."
because the humans had
6
casualties,
feet.
so at that point, maybe like you say, okay, we'll put it in a mass grave with all the people that died during that fight. But yeah, you're exactly right. You dug a hole 2 feet, and you expected that to be able to do it, and nope, absolutely
Surprised they
not.
didn't put like twigs and stuff on top of it. Tried to make it look camouflaged.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe if we cover our eyes, no one will be able to see it. I'm sure that logic went into play there, but I also get like the stupidity there. Like they had to establish that was the first mother box found, or that was the mother box that was found so that Star Labs could get it, so that you could then have the cyborg origin. But it's just fucking hilarious on how it
It's
did.
so funny. The last one found, but it's the one that was easiestly hidden.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you could have like I get the whole Nazis discovering it. If you had like ancient Egyptians, they probably would have just hidden it in a pyramid, and then Indiana Jones would have found it, kind of thing. And I'm okay with that too. It's just it's hilarious how they did it. It was like, whatever, said it, forget it, moving on. So I love that prequel scene, or I love that prologue scene, the Age of Heroes. It was awesome. There is a complaint that I have with it, but we'll get into that with the negatives. I will also give credit to that final fight scene because I like the final fight in the Whedon cut. I think it's one of the better moments of the movie to be able to showcase all the heroes. And this, I have no problem saying, did a much better job of being able to showcase those heroes. And you didn't even have Superman in the mix for those. Because, like, if I remember correctly, in the Whedon cut, they actually did have Flash fighting too. And I like the idea of having this plan in motion where he had to build up enough momentum to be able to shock Cyborg to confront the mother boxes. And I like that concept because that's usually how Flash is implemented in story elements like this, is he's not necessarily fighting. He'll fight after he's done his part of the plan, but he's always utilized in some other form. I like that concept. And then also emphasizing Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Batman in the middle of all this, because that's who needed to be emphasized. Like, these are the people that we've been seeing fighting for quite a while there. And Cyborg had another struggle to be able to work on there. So I would actually say, like, this did a better job of highlighting Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Batman than I think the Whedon cut did. It actually gave Batman plenty more to do, and I got some grappling hook finally.
Yeah,
that was one of my complaints with the previous movies, is like his grappling hook was barely used.
Yeah, and you didn't just have Batman just sit there awkwardly and shoot one thing. And I just remember that in that scene in Batman v Superman where it's like, oh, we have like Wonder Woman and Superman doing the thing, and then you just have like this one shot, and then you just see the shot of Batman. I just have to expected him to just like raise the thumbs up, like, I'm here too.
See, and at that point, I actually got into fights with people who's like, Batman would never pick up a gun. Fuck yeah, he would. Especially if it's like an alien gun, it's the only thing keeping him alive. Sure,
Yeah.
he would. And I love
And
the fact that he basically pulled these little sniper jobs, trying to take out these little encampments and then using their turret against them and then blowing it up. It's Batman!
And plus, people forget, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that Batman, probably in his 20 years of being the Dark Knight, probably created some non-lethal firearms that he probably would have used, like stuff that would be like
didn't he
tasers.
create a kryptonite gun in Batman v Superman? So at that point,
did.
yeah, you've already established that he can do it. So yeah. I don't understand why that was such an issue.
I mean, I kind of get it because, and I will say this, Zack seems to have a better understanding of some heroes other than others, because with the way he's characterized Batman is kind of symptomatic of a larger issue with the way a lot of creators characterize Batman, where they get a little too caught up in the gadgets and the engineering side of things. They kind of forget that Batman's supposed to be a detective. Now, granted, the Snyder cut shows that a little bit more, where you see him actually deducing things and figuring things out. But that's more symptomatic of a larger issue people have when trying to actually write the character of Batman.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of directors have an issue with, including the Nolan movies, where it's like, how do you showcase Batman being a detective? Oh, we'll have him sit in a chair for 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, because even the comics struggle with this from time to time as well.
Yeah, they do.
They get so caught up in the gadget side of thing, the engineering side of thing, where they basically try to treat Batman like this is again version of
why
Tony
I like
Stark.
This is another reason why I like the animated series versions, is like what they took a better approach, in my opinion, by having him show each step and saying like, okay, I need to analyze this piece of metal. Why? Because I need to know what it is. And then once I know what it is, I can know where it came from and what its purpose is. And they basically tried to take that approach of like having him deduce that, and it's worked better than any movie has been able to interpret. So that's my advice to any directors that do a Batman movie from here on in. Watch the fucking animated series. They found a way to do it.
Mhm.
I mean,
and to make it compelling.
Even Tim Burton found a way to do it with the 89 Batman film that people forget is that, hey, if you actually go back and watch it, you actually do see him, deducing things and being an actual detective.
I'll even give credit to Batman Forever. They at least had the deduction scenes with Nicole Kidman and showed that he did have a detective's mind. They didn't necessarily show him going through the paces, but they at least showed that he was a smart individual. So
yeah,
I'll give them that credit. So I think we've pretty much hammered the positives here. Is it time? I think it's time to get into the constructive criticisms.
Oh, one more thing. I think one other thing that I kind of liked that was, I think, just overall just a funny moment that a lot of people kind of like touched on that I saw on like Twitter. They touched on the fact like when they had them climbing all those stairs, and they were like, the fact that everybody else can get up those stairs a lot faster than Batman can, but they made them all climb the stairs. People were like, that is ridiculous. Like it was just like a funny moment, I think, for a lot of people. Like, yeah, I don't
know why they did that, because like, we're talking about the stairs in the underground area, right?
Yeah.
See, at that point,
they fight somebody in there.
They had the solution, which was the pit, and just had it like, oh well, I guess you're gonna have a tough time, and he just looks at all of them, grappling hook, and then goes up. They did that for the pit, but then they didn't do it for the stairs.
And that's so funny.
Yeah, although at the same time, at least with the stairs, it kind of establishes, okay, it's clear. It's like, yeah, they all could probably go up much faster, but they don't really know where they're going, whereas Batman does. And so it's like, okay, he's the leader. He knows the layout. Let's follow
not
the
only
guy
that, he has Alfred in his ear telling him.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, okay, he may be slower, but he's the only one out of us who actually knows where we're going, so we'll just let him lead.
Alfred looks a lot better in this than he did in the Whedon cut. He actually looks like a productive member of Team Batman, whereas they just had they in my opinion the Whedon cut tried to make him look like another Michael Caine, and it failed because Jeremy Irons has kind of a different flow to him. This one at least had him like being a mechanic, being the cook, being all of that stuff. I especially loved when he had the scene with Wonder Woman where she wasn't making tea to his specifications. He got a little OCD with her. That was great. Because like he's been doing it this way for years, and now somebody's offering to do his job for him. And he has a logical claim to it. He's like, well, I'm being paid for this. You're not. And so he's like, no, don't you do that. I love that concept because it gave character to Alfred that made Jeremy Irons' Alfred stand out. I like that concept, so I'll give credit there too. Constructive criticisms. I love the Age of Heroes scene, but there's something that should have been fixed. When Darkseid jumps down and finds what looks to be the anti-life equation and doesn't remember it, because this is Darkseid, damn it. Darkseid doesn't forget big details like that. I honestly think that they should have just done like a shockwave there, and that would have been the fix, and then have Steppenwolf discover the anti-life equation, and then you have even more importance to the Darkseid scene. That Steppenwolf has found what Darkseid has been wanting this entire time. And it would have had a lot more impact, but like me and Andrea were just laughing at that scene going, but you knew it was there! 'Cause you saw it! Like, because he hits the ground and the anti-life equation, like, we're guessing is the CG there. That's the showcasing the anti-life equation. They showed it, and it's like, oh, so Darkseid's a god, and he forgot that the anti-life equation was at this world.
Well, to be fair, one, he's conquered like millions of other worlds, and two,
I'll give you that.
He did lose consciousness because he got hit with an arrow and probably lost a lot of blood. And so it probably was a case where he probably blacked out. They retreated so quickly that he probably would have remembered, but nobody else with him probably.
Well, but he did remember Earth. He did remember the name of it. So at that point, I like that they did that. That's like my little correction that I would have done, is that maybe he just had a shockwave, and then we find out like Steppenwolf was, if he'd gone like 2 more inches to the side or something like that, and he would have found the anti-life equation, and it's a much bigger discovery for Steppenwolf than it is for Darkseid. So at that point, it would have just hammered his scene home a little bit more, saying, "I have found it, Master. Anti-life is here," and then the reveal of Darkseid going, "You have found Earth." That would have been a much better way to be able to go about it. Another criticism that I will make. Okay, I like the Flash. Ezra Miller needs to learn to run. I know that's a minor thing to have happen, but I've done a fair bit of running in my day, and I literally, when I would see those scenes of like him trying to run as fast as he could in the slow motion, I looked for wires, because I'm like sitting there going, there's no way you'd be able to support yourself given the lunge that you have just done. This is why in a lot of cases I like Grant Gustin, who plays the CW Flash. Like, he actually went and did sprinting to be able to figure out how running works so that they could accurately portray it. And here's the thing, I'm not knocking Ezra here. I think Ezra's part of it, but I think this was a Zack emphasis. He wanted to make it look like he was overexerting himself, but in slow motion. And all it does is it just kind of makes Barry look weird, and in turn makes it look like he doesn't know how to run. And at this point, you know, we at least have the establishment of he's been the Flash for a little while now. Like, he came up with the suit and all that. So I think he would have learned how to run. So that might be a little bit of a nitpick on my end, but it's a big one to me. It's a big one. Especially when your TV show did it better. Okay, apparently I'm the only one in that camp.
I didn't notice that. I get what you're getting at.
Also, I want to bring this to Romney specifically. Was it a little much on all the lightning bolts that went everywhere? And I don't know if you noticed, sometimes they would destroy things and sometimes they wouldn't. With the explanation of the Speed Force, it seemed a bit forced. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of noticed that, but I mean, on the one hand, I could kind of see like an explanation of being like, okay, if he's like going at certain speeds, and this was actually a debate I got into back in college with someone who was familiar with the comics but hadn't seen the movies, where he was like, oh, why doesn't the Flash, use like sonic booms and stuff like that from his speed to incapacitate enemies? And I'm just like, well, that would like kill people. So it's a case of, okay, well, maybe those could be explained with a thing. Okay, maybe in times where it did destroy things, he was going at a speed where where there would have been enough of a blowback, especially if it's a case where, like we see in the film, where when he occasionally trips or loses his footing, where the momentum just carries them into whatever he's
hitting. I like those moments. I like the fact that he tripped and then it took him out of the Speed Force, but it took him out hard.
Yeah, especially in some instances, like when he's having to run fast enough to get enough electricity to activate the mother box, where after he zaps it, he basically then vibrates through the other side. It's not like he just punches a hole. He basically is just like, okay, I'm going to crash into the wall. I'm going to basically vibrate through it so that way I don't die, but then still takes a pretty nasty tumble because, he
tried something similar when he knocked into Aquaman too, right? When they were fighting against Superman, like he tried to phase them both so that they didn't take as much damage, and he still got punched by Aquaman.
So stuff like that, I can kind of be like, okay, I didn't notice it as much, but that's because there were other things that bothered me to a much larger degree.
Sure. Those are the ones that I want to kind of start things off. Obviously, you have the floor, Romney.
Well, I'm going to boil it down to like two main things. First, I mean, I get it. It's cool that he wants to try to recreate comic panels or create kind of the comic panel composition in certain shots. But there's a limit. You don't need to do it so much, especially when you're, I mean, again, to add on to Shay's point from earlier, slow motion for the Flash stuff, the Speedster stuff, makes sense. You don't need, and somebody actually literally timed it, literally 24 minutes of this movie is in slow motion.
24 minutes.
You didn't need that much slow-mo. No. I mean, the Flash, it's justified.
This is excessive even for Zack Snyder. And Zack Snyder made 300!
Yeah. And even with stuff that just, especially with some of the moments he chose to try to mimic the comic panel look of it, it just is one of those, okay, I get it.
And he put it in unnecessary scenes, too. Do you remember how he put the slow motion in when Batman was trying to travel to the village to find Aquaman? I'm like, why do we need slow motion here?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I get the whole, like, posing of, like, oh, here's all the heroes, like, lined up for this really cool pose, and I'm just like, okay, I get what you're going for, Zack, but it is a motion picture. I mean, save this, I mean, if you want to do those types of things, well, then just write a comic script and hire an artist. You don't need to do this in live action. And so that was one thing that irked me, but not nearly as much as the other thing. And granted, I know that there are some Zack Snyder fans of this cut specifically that like this stuff, but honestly, you didn't need the nightmare scenes. You didn't need the alternate timelines of, oh, here's the universe in which they all lose, or especially
that felt like teasing Justice League 2 more than anything else.
Yeah, and especially it's just all the nightmare stuff of trying to like establish of, oh, here's this alternate reality where they all failed and Superman went insane and became evil. It's like that stuff could have been cut.
Yeah, did it not? Was it just me, or did it feel like it was forced in order to look like Injustice because that was a NetherRealm property?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it feels like. And it's something that irks me with just the way a lot of DC properties do it in general. They think the only way to make an interesting story is to somehow turn Superman evil, which, if you're going to do it, find a better justification for it. But
which is honestly, sad because you have like I think this was the series finale for Superman the Animated Series, where Darkseid basically like wipes his memory and makes him like his loyal son kind of thing. You could have easily done that story and it would have had the same impact, and it actually would have had a much better arc because people would want Superman to get healed kind of thing. And instead it felt like they were doing Injustice because they have Injustice.
Well, yeah, and plus on top of it, especially at the very end, after they have basically saved the day and have separated the mother boxes and have done all that stuff, to have just this huge, long, extra chunk of, oh, here's this post-apocalyptic stuff with Mara and the Flash and all that, just so we can get our Joker scene. I'm just like, that just slows the film down.
And it wasn't even, like, okay, I know that some people are going to get mad at me for saying this. I'm not going to say that this did better for the Jared Leto Joker or worse, because it really didn't do anything for him. In a lot of cases, it wasn't the scene to showcase the Jared Leto Joker. This would have been a better idea to put somebody else in that role.
Yeah, especially given what it was trying to establish.
If anything, put Margot in Joker's place, and then you make the emphasis of like, well, Superman lost Lois, I lost the Joker, kind of thing.
Well, sort of. They kind of established, though, that, I mean, especially when you look at the later Harley Quinn movie and all of that, they kind of established that she gets away from Joker and doesn't really have any particularly positive feelings for him by any stretch. But just that scene in general, it's like, okay, that scene probably would have been good if, you had it in a film where that was the storyline and not as some weird nightmare sequence that Bruce was having. It's just, again, all the nightmare stuff, all of this alternate reality where things go down the crapper, that should have been cut from the film, because it added nothing, especially at the very end where, oh, you've had the nice resolution of they saved the day, they've disabled the mother boxes, everybody's feeling good because the teams come together, they're all united. Then you just shoehorn this crappy nightmare sequence in, which if you wanted to tease it, shorten it. Just shorten the idea of maybe having them like meeting a little bit. You didn't need the whole like, oh, we have to like establish the stakes, or just have it where they're like gathering. It's like, hey, we can't be out exposed for very long, and then like, oh crap, he spotted us, and then show Superman like getting ready to kill them, then have Bruce wake up, then it would have case of, okay, if you shortened it to just those beats, it would have worked.
It would have worked better as an Easter egg.
I agree.
And so that's the other thing that bugged me, like the slow-mo, the attempts at creating comics, especially the comic panel.
I'm going to have another nitpick in here too. I've seen a lot of people justify the F-bomb that Batman drops. And I disagree. I think this was not a good use because, again, it's the context that it was used. I don't like this whole concept of trying to paint Batman as sadistic when it comes to the Joker. I like, and granted, I know in some comics like The Killing Joke, it works to be able to have them have this wholesome moment of laughing together. But having him go to the Joker and say, and trust me, I will fucking kill you, that pissed me off to no other end, because all that did was, congratulations, Brucey, you just played into what the Joker wanted you to do. And I like the Batman that doesn't play into it, which annoys the Joker. And that was probably the better way to go. And I've seen plenty of sites say like, oh no, that F-bomb was totally justified. Not really. When, I mean, if you're trying to paint off Batman as being Scarface, fine. But that's not the Batman that people like.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even think a Keaton Batman would have dropped an F-bomb like that.
Yeah, like maybe if you were trying to adapt one of the Miller Batman stories, maybe.
That's exactly my problem with it. It feels like I'm the goddamn Batman. That's what that line feels like.
Yeah, and again, to kind of circle back, that whole nightmare sequence, I mean, I know what Zack was trying to do. That's what he was trying to tease, but again, if you really wanted it, put it to the after the credits, because again, you interrupted what was basically a nice, good, solid conclusion. Maybe skip straight to where Martian Manhunter meets with Bruce Wayne. It's like, hey,
that should have been the Easter egg. Actually, I kind of want to bounce into that because I completely forgot that. What do we think of Martian Manhunter in this?
Honestly, he could have been introduced a little bit better. Like, I mean, I get what they were trying to do with having him approaching Lois as Martha Kent, but honestly, it felt a bit forced. The whole, oh, the world needs you too, Miss Lane, and I'm just like, eh.
See, that's the scene I have a problem with. I don't think that the Martha scene should have happened. Sorry. Why did you say that name? So I have a problem with that one, but I do like how he introduces himself to Bruce. I like that scene.
That should have just been the way they introduced it. I mean, if they wanted to still have the reveal of the General being the Martian Manhunter, then maybe rather than having him just fly up in his normal Martian form, have it where he appears as the General and have Bruce be like, General, why are you here? And then have him shaped as like, hey, it's like, I know, like, there's more things coming. It's probably even a better, it's like, hey, there's more things coming. You've obviously seen the truth of the universe, so I may as well show you the truth of who I am, and then have him change to his Martian form and being like, I'm willing to help out because there's more stuff coming.
And I think at that point, like, I know a few people would make the argument that he would like immediately go into full guard, but I actually think Bruce would just kind of let it play out and say like, okay, yeah, you've been deceiving us, but I kind of understand why you've been doing that. That's one of the things I like about this film is that Batman is shown to be more reserved. He doesn't have to react initially like he did in Batman v Superman. He can just wait for the cards to play and be okay with it. I think that would have played off a lot better if he had done that.
And I mean, that kind of, again, speaks to the growth the character had throughout Justice League, especially when you have the idea of him like in his conversation with Alfred, where Alfred's just like, hey, you are trying to plan for all these contingencies, like, but you're defying a lot of logic, and he's just like, I'm not acting on logic, I'm acting on faith.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It kind of goes to that idea is that in reassembling this team, it kind of gives him his faith in humanity back, his faith in the world back. That's kind of the arc that this version of Batman takes in this film, is that, hey, in the process of bringing this team together and working to save the world, it restores his faith in the world. It kind of reminds him, hey, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I care about this world and I'm willing to fight for it.
Yeah. Shay, any criticisms that you want to make?
My biggest one was mostly the slow-mo. Like,
that seems to be on all of our lists.
I just didn't like it. And in some ways, like, I feel like it was a little slow at the beginning. Like, it took me a minute to really get into it. Like, some aspects really could have been cut out. Like, in some ways, even the Wonder Woman sequence could have been shortened just a little bit because of the fact that she did already have a solo movie, so she was really an established character. And even some of the stuff with Aquaman could have been removed a little bit too, just because his movie hadn't yet been out. And I feel like some of the lines that were said alluded to like this happening after the Aquaman solo
and here's
movie
the
had
thing, I
taken
actually
place.
like the underground temple scene where she finds out about Darkseid. I thought that was a really great way to be able to have her, because remember, in the Whedon cut, she just knows. She just knows.
Yeah.
And in this case, they're like, oh no, crap, what's her name? Hippolyta found a way to be able to explain this.
Yeah,
to
I like
Diana.
that. Like, I thought that, like, I would have liked that to have been a better way to bring, like, Diana into the film. You know, like,
Yeah.
take out the other part when she's, like, you know, fighting against a bad guy a little bit, because I just felt like it was kind of...
See, I disagree
It was
with you
a
on that because that was a
lot.
badass scene.
No,
But
I'm not saying it wasn't, like, a bad scene. Like, it was a good scene. But
Yeah.
because of just the pace of the movie, like, it could have been removed. And to the buildup of, like, who's the big bad and the buildup to bringing these people together, like, yeah, have that sequence of like, I enjoyed the sequence of her, like,
Yep.
going to the underground, seeing the arrow, knowing what that meant and everything else. And then just as far as like with Aquaman, like, some of the conversations he was having with certain characters, like, made it seem like Aquaman had already happened, when, like,
Yeah.
we know that Aquaman came out after Justice League had came out.
Yeah,
So
there
it
was a
made
little
it
bit
to
of a
where-
continuity problem.
Yeah, like, that was just a continuity issue that I kind of had, and that was one thing I even explained to my fiance. Like, it made it to where, like, I didn't feel the need to have to watch an Aquaman movie, because I feel like I just kind of not saw it, but kind of like saw, like, bits and pieces of, like, characters that he's established a relationship with, whereas in the Aquaman movie he didn't have a lot of these relationships with characters he had conversations with.
Well, and another thing that I would say to kind of help out your issue is, like, yeah, it did have a slow start. One of the things that actually kind of bugged me was that they had that whole scene and her being in the art restoration room, and then she finds out about the arrow. Wouldn't it have been better, because we know that banks have TVs everywhere now, is all of a sudden, like, she has that moment with the little girl, can I be like you? You can be anything you want to be. And then all of a sudden on the TV, it says that the Parthenon is on fire. And then at that point, she can bounce into that from the bank scene, and then you could just flow into all of that. Because that kind of bugged me. It's just like, okay, you could have easily, like, taken 10 minutes out of this film doing that. We didn't need to have Wonder Woman coming out in work attire. You could have just had her been in her costume, and I would have been okay with it.
Yeah.
If
one thing
anything,
I did-
I wouldn't have the problem of, wait, you have those high heels and you're jumping how far down?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that did bug me about that bank fight scene, I mean, for the most part, it was pretty good, except for where it ended, where she does the huge shockwave theme, and it basically obliterates the guy, especially after, throughout most of the fight, where she has basically gone to lengths to make sure that nobody is getting killed unnecessarily. Or
Yeah,
dying.
it would have been a better idea to introduce that Van Braces thing with the fight with Steppenwolf, not in the bank, because they literally kind of paint it throughout this movie as it's like the last ditch effort that she has. It's the last card she can play, and it would have been better to do that with Steppenwolf, not menial little bank robbers.
Yeah, like, bank robber, terrorist person. It's just, I looked at that and I'm just like, okay, so you have her go to these lengths using her bracelets to make sure nobody dies, and then she basically obliterates this one guy and blows out this wall. It's kind of it was just one of those inconsistencies that it's kind of like, okay, pick one or the other, Zack. I mean, I get it, you're kind of wanting to not be limited by the whole moral code thing, but it's one of those, it kind of undid what you were trying to establish.
Yeah.
And it actually would have been better to just have her safely apprehend them instead of having her blow the wall out and then all we see is the dude's hat, because it kind of implies Wonder Woman killed him. And
Yeah.
it bothers me a little bit because they find a way to be able to say, like, she safely apprehended the other ones, but not this one, not the true psycho. And I would like to think that Diana would have found a way to be able to do that. But if anybody wants to cut out any of the Van Brace scenes, I'm going to tell you no, because that was amazing how Zack did it. And Zack doesn't usually work very well in fast motion. So the fact that he did that and then immediately went into the whole, I'm going to save every other bullet. That was really cool. And also being able to safely take care of the bomb as well as the terrorists.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only cons I had. It was just kind of, it had its slow moments, like in a lot of ways. There where I was like, all right, get to the action, Zack. Come on. I got 4 hours.
Beats. Keep
come
going.
On. We got to keep it going. Keep it moving.
All right.
That was the only thing. Yeah.
Alex, any criticisms that you have?
I definitely agree. The slow motion got egregious after a while. Although, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember. Well, there is a lot of slow motion for sure. I don't remember a lot of Snyder's other trademark, and that is film ramping. You know, where within the same scene it starts and stops so suddenly. That I feel like he avoided this time around. So call that a praise. So another praise.
Give me an example of it, because I kind of want to say it's in here.
I'm sure it's in here, but I don't think he used it nearly as egregiously as general slow motion.
Yeah, I think the only moments where it was there, and that is if it was kind of hard to tell, is when the scenes with Hippolyta carrying the mother box and basically having it all sealed off in order to try to trap Steppenwolf. But even then, it was hard to tell if it was actually film ramping or if it was a case of, they couldn't sync the frame rate between the CGI effects and the live action stuff.
True.
And so if it's there, that would be my guess as to where it is. But like you said, Alex, it's very subdued if it is there.
Yeah, so more praise for that. At least he dialed that back, because I've known that, because I know 300 is full of that, and I hate that effect in general, especially because after 300, everybody started doing it, and it got annoying quick. So,
yes, it was the new Matrix, basically.
Yeah, the new Matrix, pretty much. So, yeah, I think the slow-mo, and I agree, the overextended epilogue, especially with the Joker, was a lot of really unnecessary. I did like Martian Manhunter, so I think you could have trimmed that scene down a little bit more, cut a few bits. You didn't need the Joker there. I think just everything else about that scene could have been cut down. I think.
Plus, a lot of the whiplash that they offer with that, because remember they had the Easter egg of Lex helping out Deathstroke, and then all of a sudden you go to a scene in a wrecked city, and Deathstroke and Batman are working together, and it's like, what?
Yeah. It made no sense. So I think you either should have dropped the Lex meeting Deathstroke, or you should have dropped the apocalyptic epilogue altogether. One of the
and I would have said drop the apocalyptic dialogue, because at that point you would have had at least a good setup for a Batman 2. Is like, Batman versus Deathstroke, yeah, absolutely, sign me up.
Yeah, I agree. Even if that's not going to be the subject of the upcoming The Batman,
no, at
least there's a seed for a potential future movie much further down the road.
Yeah, because we can't glean anything from this, as the Warner Brothers CEO has said that this is it. There's no more of the Snyder universe from here on in. It's the JJ universe. So at that point, like, if anybody was excited about that, like, there's no guarantee that Deathstroke is in the Batman. And frankly, probably for the best. Like, let them tell their own stories. I'm a little worried, obviously, because the JJ universe started with Birds of Prey, but I'm willing to be patient.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, we may see Deathstroke, because there is the Suicide Squad coming out.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Suicide Squad, which, again, the titles...
See, we love making titles to these things, Shay, because that's Romney's title is the Suicide Squad, not to be or Suicide Squad, not to be confused with the Suicide Squad.
And so there's still probably the possibility of, some elements of Snyder's plan being reworked, especially considering that they still have Margot Robbie, they still have Viola Davis as Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where DC doesn't quite have all their ducks in a row, and probably never will for the foreseeable future, given how haphazardly they've been running things.
And just kind of, so I've been debating as whether or not to bring this up for this, because a few of our viewers did follow this as it happened. So I'll briefly go over it, and that is the debacle that happened with Zack Snyder just before the Snyder Cut released on HBO Max. Have you heard this story, Romney?
The Tom and Jerry thing?
No. Where he went on to a charity live stream and basically threw all the people who contributed to the charity under the bus.
Heard of that.
So I'll give kind of a brief synopsis of it. The Geeks and Gamers community, if you guys follow Geeks and Gamers on YouTube, we're doing a charity event to be able to raise money for suicide awareness. Because once again, if you don't know, and I actually want to point this out, I did like the little credit for his, because I think Autumn was his daughter's name.
Yes.
And so I like the fact that he did that. And so they were trying to raise money in light of his the recent death in his family, as well as being able to do overall suicide awareness. Well, basically what happened was they advertised it as a Geeks and Gamers event, and they were going to do a charity live stream to kind of push it over literally hours before Justice League was supposed to release on HBO Max. And one of the things that they had featured, because he'd agreed to it, is that Zack Snyder would join the live stream to answer questions and things like that. Well, the problem happened is that the banner that was on I think it was the GoFundMe or how they were funding it, had a Geeks and Gamers logo on it. And that set off Warner Brothers and made them go straight on into panic mode and demand that Zack basically disavow them as, because I have to bring this in, haters, alt-right, white supremacists, whatever. And if Zack didn't do it, they would last minute pull Justice League from HBO Max, which I'm going to say personally, I don't think they would have done it. Because there was way too much hype going into this, and they probably wanted to see what was going to happen. But basically what happened was Zack went onto it, and even though the logo had since been removed, he threw the Geeks and Gamers community, which up until that point had contributed $67,000 to suicide prevention, and threw them under the bus and disavowed them and said, oh, you guys are in a really bad PR form, basically saying that you guys are the problem. And I've got the clip. I'll even show it to you if you want to see it, Romney. I know Shay and Alex have seen it, but it's very bad taste, especially when it's a charity thing. Because it didn't necessarily need to happen where you were criticizing people because of having different viewpoints, and all of this was for charity, kind of thing. So at that point, is there anything we want to add to this? I'm going to state my opinion very clearly. This was not Zack should not have done the PR statement. He obviously fumbled quite a bit when doing it, but I want to make sure that the fault is put where the fault is deserved, and that is with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers should not have done that. They should not have gone into panic mode. They should have just let Zack do what he was going to do. And it's very clear that their CEO was going to come out the following Monday and say, well, you guys like the Snyder Cut. Nothing's happening. So you kind of were covered in that regard. But I want to make sure that the fault does go where it's needed, and that is with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers should not have done that, and now they look like the overall fools because they messed around with a charity live stream that eventually, due to auctions from actual memorabilia from the movie, reached, I am happy to say, a whopping $110,000 for the American Society for Suicide Prevention, I think is what it's called. So, and I mean, we had really cool stuff. We had really cool set art that was signed by the cast. Like, Zack got the cast together to sign it. So it was pretty freaking awesome. So I will give them that credit, but it was just all in bad taste.
Yeah. Sadly, given that this was a Warner Brothers thing, given how reactionary Warner Brothers has proven over the past number of decades, sadly, it doesn't surprise me that this is a thing that happened because, well, this is a thing Warner Brothers has done many, many times in the past because, it's one of those things where Warner Brothers they really just need to stop chasing after Disney and just get used to doing their own thing like they used to do way back in the past with their animated shorts.
Especially since they start to become like Disney when they do it. And it looks like if this had been done by Disney, it would have been equally as seedy.
Yeah, it's very much one of those cases where yeah, Warner Brothers, it's just, yeah, the fact that this is a Warner Brothers thing, it doesn't surprise me because they've done crap like this before, and they're probably going to do crap like this again until they stop trying to mimic what Disney is doing, because you're not Disney. You've never been Disney. You've been established as doing your own thing, and you should, keep it that way.
Exactly. Any thoughts that you, Alex and Shay, want to provide for this one? I know you guys have seen the clip, so at that point you can state your thoughts on what Zack said. But anything else you want to add?
The only thing I can add is maybe it would have been better for him to pass this along to his agent to kind of handle, his agent or manager, whichever. So yeah, it's just kind of a bad situation all around.
Either that, or if Warner Brothers was just that much in panic mode, maybe you just have to gracefully say, look, I wish I could come on this live stream, but if I do, it's going to create a lot of other problems. And the Geeks and Gamers community have, like, the moderators that ran it have even said, like, I don't think it was an option on the table because they wanted to bring him on, but it probably would have been better if he had just not come on.
Yeah.
So, Shay, any final thoughts on that one?
Just that, we don't know what might have also been said behind the scenes. Like, while we know that Warner Brothers gave him an ultimatum, maybe they were like, you have to appear on the live stream and you have to be the one to actually say it. Like, you can't go through anybody else. So we have to know that it's
that's true.
And I could totally see Warner Brothers doing that.
And that could be like why he had to do it. And probably the reason why he flubbed it so badly is because his heart wasn't in what he was saying.
Yeah.
Like he didn't want to do it, but it was kind of one of those things of like, do I not do this and run the risk of them not, showing this movie and getting a lot of fans upset that it's not going to be released? Or do I go ahead and just throw these people under the bus, even though I don't want to do it, just for the betterment, or not the betterment, but just for the reason that so many fans have fought so hard or have wanted to see this movie? So it's like he was in a weird catch-22. And I know like a lot of people don't fault him for what he did. They definitely fault like Warner Brothers and the position they put him in, but there could have been some clause or something that they told him why he had to do it or why he had to appear, because we don't know what went on behind the scenes.
We absolutely don't. And that could easily be something that was there that we just don't know about. So I totally agree with you. But the one thing that I'm overall hoping on this is Zack Snyder has had a successful film career. So much so that it's been well established that he's set for life, basically. Like he's earned enough money off of successes like Sin City, 300, even to some extent with the Snyder Cut, because I believe they're already working on a 4K Blu-ray release for it. And so he will get a cut from that too. So he's pretty much set. And there has been some documented evidence basically saying that he's kind of tired of the Hollywood system and what it requires in order to be able to get projects off the ground. I would actually like to see Zack basically say, you know what? I can make this work if I just do indie ventures, or if I can support other up-and-coming directors and give them another option. I don't know if he'll do it, frankly. I would not be surprised if by the end of all this, he's done directing. It wouldn't surprise me considering the prices he's had to pay. But if he wanted to be able to get back into it, I could totally see him not doing it from a studio perspective anymore. And probably being respected more for doing that.
I can see him just not working for Warner Brothers anymore. Like, I can see him not doing that, or maybe not doing another, like, superhero movie for a long time. Or if he does do another one, it would be with a completely different studio.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be Disney, because he has vocally criticized Disney in the past, but he'd probably go to like a medium-sized studio and maybe work for them.
Yeah. I mean, he did praise Marvel for like the universe they created, though.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was actually pleasantly surprised to see, that he
honestly, off the top of my head, in terms of like any other superhero property that I think would be a good fit for him, it's hard to say because I've
Yeah.
seen when he's tried to do his own.
Correct me
original
if I'm
stuff.
wrong. Watchmen was also his, right? The movie.
Yeah, he directed.
Mhm.
Yeah, he directed the film version of Watchmen, and with adaptation, he does a little bit of a better job because I've seen him try to do original stuff with Sucker Punch and the absolute train wreck that movie is.
Yeah.
And so, like I've said it before, Zack Snyder's the kind of filmmaker that if you get him with the right people, the right writers, and the right producers, he can produce some really good work.
Yeah.
It's just
I
that's
agree.
kind of he's very much a lot like Alan Moore, where some work fine if they're not in a box, but there are other creators that you need to put them in that box in order for them to actually put out good work. Alan Moore is kind of an example of that.
Yeah.
Mark Miller is an example
Alan Moore
of that.
needs that control to be able to be productive.
Yeah, and I would argue that Zack Snyder, to an extent, granted not to the degree that, Warner Brothers did with the theatrical cut of Justice League, but it's kind of one of those, he needs to be with the right kind of people.
Yeah.
So if he were to jump to some other superhero property, in terms of stuff that would be a good fit, maybe Spawn? But
Yeah, that's like the
maybe.
first one that kind of came to my mind was like Spawn might be a good one for him because he can do that aesthetic very well
Yeah.
because we have evidence of it. But yeah, that's the other thing too is that, when we're talking about more niche properties like 300, he does very, very well because it's a one shot. He doesn't have to worry about years and years of continuity. And I would actually say Spawn would be great. And I think he would be able to do well with it, despite the fact that it does have a very storied history. Either that or just give him more one-shots. Give him more one-shots of stuff and just see what he does with it.
I mean, another hero that he probably would do an okay job with, again, provided that he's working with the right kind of writers, maybe Lady Death. I can see him probably doing Lady Death.
Yeah. I'd be a little worried about him going down the Sucker Punch road, but Lady Death kind of fits that. So
yeah. Provided that he's working very closely with Brian Pulido. If Pulido was in there from the scripting phase, I can see a Lady Death Zack Snyder film working. Maybe Red Sonja if they decide to give him that because
Hellboy. I'm not sure.
I mean, if it considering with the reboot of Hellboy that we got. I mean, maybe not Hellboy, but maybe a BPRD movie where instead of trying to tie it strictly to Hellboy, just something in that universe, maybe.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a little bit. Sorry, that was a viewer suggestion on whether or not he should do the Hellboy series. Yeah, there's a couple of other niche properties that I think he would be able to do a lot of justice with. Pardon the pun. But yeah, that's kind of the issue that I see is give him one shots. One shots are easier for him to do, and they work a little bit better. I would actually say give him a Superman one shot, and he'd probably do very well to it.
To a point, I guess it would really depend on which one shot you give him. Because there are some aspects of the characterization that he's good at. Others he kind of struggles with. It would have to be one. I don't know. Because I don't see him handling something like All-Star Superman, and we saw that he couldn't really handle Doomsday particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something with a bit lower stakes would probably be a bit more fitting. And I mean, if they decide to give him a crack at DC, where they do let him do another Superman film, for example, maybe something with a smaller scale conflict to kind of show okay, well, you've tried this big elaborate thing. Let's give you something a bit smaller, something that isn't meant to be the next big, huge build-up thing. Maybe putting him with some sort of a storyline that's kind of a much smaller scale.
And guys, don't recommend DC properties because he's done. They are all owned by Warner Brothers. Because I've got a few others give him Blue Beetle or give him what was the other one? Give him Blue Beetle, give him Booster Gold. The justification being go the MCU route, go with C or D list heroes. And that's great and all. But again, DC is owned by Warner Brothers. So he'd have to work with Warner Brothers again, and I don't think he'd be willing to do it. Do I want to see a Blue Beetle run? I don't know. I think that might not be the way to go for him. But Booster Gold? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, alternately, and this would probably be a massive long shot in terms of some of the other Dark Horse stuff, maybe if they decide to try again with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, maybe give him that.
Yeah.
That could be something he probably
Yeah,
would
I'd
do
be
an
okay with
okay
it.
job with.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are a little over time, and I do know that people have to get to bed and all that stuff, but I think overall what people have gotten is we liked the film. We liked a lot of what it did, but man, I wish we would have gotten like 3 or 4 movies out of this. I really wish that they had done the MC. This is the one thing that we all agreed upon with the Whedon cut, and I agree with it here. Man, it would have been great if you'd put like MCU levels of planning into this, because what you could have done with the Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman could have been just so much better. And I still will stick to what I said. I know I said this in the Justice League review. I know I did. Is that DC has the potential to beat Marvel. And the only reason I say that is because the characters are much more historied. There's a lot more people that have knowledge of them than they do Marvel. I mean, for crying out loud, the first superhero movies were Superman and Batman. People know those properties, and there was no reason for this to fail other than the tons of executive meddling that Warner Brothers did. And so at that point, that's on you, Warner Brothers. I have no problem saying that. And frankly, I disavow you because you couldn't do more justice to these characters.
Yeah, and honestly, to add to that, one core thing, and this is something I think Warner Brothers has lost sight of, because when people discuss Marvel and DC characters, there's kind of a key axiom to keep in mind. Marvel is about heroes you can relate to. DC is about heroes you look up to. And Warner Brothers has lost sight of that. They're so focused on trying to copy Marvel that they're forgetting that that's the core appeal of DC
and
heroes.
And what's funny is this movie showed that. And I wonder if that's why Warner Brothers didn't like it.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, because again, this is Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And that's, if they really want a crack at a decent DC cinematic universe, whatever form it may take, that's just what they need to finally remember, is that, hey, DC heroes are not the relatable. They're the kind that they're meant to inspire. They're meant to set an example. They're meant to give something for us, Joe Schmoes, to aspire to. Yeah. That is what these heroes represent.
They also need to work on like keeping a lot of the same people like who are playing these characters on for a longer period of time, because like everyone loves like Henry Cavill playing Superman, but the fact that everyone's like, we want a Man of Steel too, but that never happened. And then
it never happened, and Henry Cavill has given up the opportunity.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to be Superman anymore. And then they said, oh, the Christopher Nolan films for Batman, like they're not canon to the DCEU. Okay, well now you had Ben Affleck was playing Batman. Make a Batman movie with Ben Affleck.
And
they
he's
never
the one I
did
feel the saddest about. We made fun of him, and there was no justice to it. And for that, Ben, I am sorry. I am.
But it's just like it. Like that's one thing like where Marvel excelled at, is that while they did have some people changed out of certain characters, like of course, like what's his name now plays Hulk. Whereas before
Ed Norton.
It was Ed Norton played him first, but then it got passed on to
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo, yes. So they have had where like even like Rhodey got changed. Like they've had that happen, but it still kept things going and kept things a little like well or good at least. But with DC or like with Warner Brothers, like they just never kept it up, and then they never really gave anyone like a number 2 to another film to introduce more characters or bring more people in and to make a cinematic universe. They just kept making different films and then putting people together, and you're like, I don't know why I care about all these characters being together when you never established me to care about them yet.
Yeah, I think the big difference here is that Warner Brothers doesn't have a Kevin Feige who can kind of guide everything and basically keep it cohesive and actually have a plan. I mean, for a while, they wanted Zack Snyder to be the Kevin Feige. Like, prior to that, they wanted Christopher Nolan to be the Kevin Feige. But the difference is...
No, the talk that they were saying is, like, Zack was going to be the Joss, and then Nolan was going to be the Feige kind of thing. And even that pairing is a little weird.
Yeah, because the key difference is that Kevin Feige was a comic book fan first and foremost. He had intimate knowledge of a lot of these characters and their interrelations to one another. And for a while, they even tried having Jeff Johns being the Kevin Feige for the DC stuff. But from what we've learned with Ray Fisher and what he went through, Jeff Johns doesn't seem to play nice with the higher ups at Warner Brothers, which kind of is what the issue seems to be. And especially now that DC Comics themselves have had major shakeups with Dan Didio stepping down and like a lot of these plans that they had for things like Future State and now Infinite Frontier kind of being all up in the air, DC, even down to the comics level, doesn't really have their house in order. And that's really what's hurting them.
Well, comics itself doesn't have its house in order as far as I'm concerned. People might know that like a couple of days ago, I just openly criticized the Children of the Atom comic that just got debuted. And I did not criticize it without warrant. I basically stated that it wasn't like the advertisement. What it was is that it was based on 100% new characters, and no, it isn't. It is, and for that, like that's why I'm saying in expansion, it's just comics in general. There's a reason manga's beating out comics right now, because manga has more interesting ideas to be able to bring to the table.
Also, comics are a lot harder to get into. Like, there's so many different reboots and reimaginings of a lot of the characters that we meet through, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that it's hard to be like, okay, I know where to start with this character so I can learn more about their story. Whereas with manga, it's like, if I watch this anime, I can look online and know, like, okay, where should I start in the manga if I want to continue this story? Because that's the biggest issue a lot of people have had with comics, is that I want to get into them, but I don't know where to start because there's so many iterations of this same character where I don't know where their story begins or where I should start or where to jump in at. So I'm just going to stick with the movies and what I know or what I can find on Wikipedia.
Yeah, but to tie it back specifically to DC, because for people who don't know, Children of the Atom, that's a Marvel comic. And Marvel, the key difference is that Marvel, they have kind of a plan in the comics level. It's like, okay, they know what the X-Men side of things are doing. They know what the Avengers side of things are doing. They know what the Spider-Man side of things are doing. DC doesn't have any of that. It's pretty much been all over the place because a lot of plans got thrown to the wayside because of Warner Brothers, mucking with the comic side of things. And I've been enjoying some of the Future State titles, particularly the ones I've enjoyed have been the Superwoman storyline that they've been going with. But it's one of those where right down to the comic side of things, which is where all these characters are pulled from, DC doesn't really know what it's trying to be anymore, and doesn't help that they've burned a lot of comic shops by leaving Diamond. And that's, I think,
which Marvel just barely did too.
Yeah, but it's a kind of a case of where that's kind of where the issue is with Warner Brothers and DC, is that nobody's steering the ship, and that's the problem.
No, and it's not just evident in comics; it's evident in TV right now too. I mean, there's a big debate on Batman versus Superman and Lois. As to whether or not this, which direction is going to be the one that we go from here on in. I've even heard rumors they're going to cancel Batwoman and bring Batwoman into Superman and Lois. And I thought that was dumb. Absolutely stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, with Batwoman, it's a different case where they literally had their main star quit at the end of the first season.
Yeah, and the new star hasn't been able to bring in a new audience. So
yeah, and that's a whole separate thing, because the TV shows are probably one of the few things. DC
I'm just showing as an emphasis, like, nobody's steering the ship. Nobody knows where they're going. And so at that point, that's why we have this ongoing problem. And I would not be surprised that as soon as we get like the Suicide Squad out here and maybe even a few others, we're going to find out that the JJ universe doesn't really have that much direction either.
That honestly wouldn't really surprise me just with what's going on. Is that
I haven't even seen Wonder Woman 84, and everybody has told me it runs around in circles.
It's not very good.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. But yeah, it kind of goes back to the main point, is that basically, honestly, I think Warner Brothers and DC, if they want to continue trying to get into the films, they should stick with the multiverse plan, where they figure, okay, rather than trying to create a single coherent universe, we're just going to take some storylines, some set properties, make movies based on these properties. And so it's like, okay, for those who want the darker, grittier stuff, we have stuff like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and we have stuff like Joker. For those who want the more lighthearted stuff, well, then they can create the more lighthearted movies with the more lighthearted characters. I mean, if you want to reboot Superman and create more of a family-friendly, lighthearted line of DC movies, more power to you. That probably would be the way to go. Is have stuff that basically have your dark and your light sides of your brand, where it's like, okay, here's our family-friendly line of movies that, hey, if you just have kids that are fans of these characters, here are movies they can see that are age appropriate. We still have some stuff for the adults, but this is our family-friendly line.
Yeah.
But for those of you who like the grittier stuff, well, then here's this side of it. That is where you can
and
find
another thing I'd also
movies.
hammer home is, and I think you and I are both on the same wavelength here, Warner Brothers, stop trying to worry about origin stories on heroes that we already know.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, I actually have seen this argued for the past week, that people would like to see a Superman movie based off of Superman the Animated Series, where it's just like he's in the middle of it and he's trying to solve a case. We don't have to worry about saying that he is Kal-El, son of Krypton, all that. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. And especially with Batman, don't even worry about the origin. Just go into he's trying to solve the latest thing involving the Riddler kind of thing, because that's what we want to see.
I mean, alternately, if you, a way to get around, it's like, oh, but how are we going to get new audiences that aren't familiar? It's like, well, create an audience proxy character. For Batman, you could easily have a character like Vicky Vale or Selena Kyle be that audience proxy.
Yeah.
Of, hey, I'm like, or a better example, maybe Dick Grayson, like the next Batman movie, have Batman already established and have Dick Grayson.
That's another big thing that I've seen a lot of people saying, is that if they do another Batman movie, especially like with Ben Affleck, put a Robin in it. Because obviously, like, there's a lot of hinting that they were going to do Death in the Family with that.
Yeah, so that would be the way for a Batman film. It's like you could have Dick Grayson be the audience proxy, Vicky Vale being the audience proxy. Heck, you could even use someone like Barbara Gordon as the audience proxy. Okay, you've established that in this movie, Batman is already a thing, and you just have an audience proxy character being pulled in. Same case with Superman. You could have it where, okay, you're wanting a film that establishes Superman is already a presence. Okay, make the audience proxy character someone like Jimmy Olsen, where it's like, okay, you've just got a regular person who basically is pulled into this world of this story where these things have already been established. That probably would be the best way. I mean, Green Lantern is probably the best way to, is probably a textbook example of this, of, oh, you just have someone like Kyle Rayner or Guy Gardner get the Green Lantern ring in this universe where all these heroes already exist and have been established. It's like, oh, you have a new Green Lantern who's now having to find their place in this world of gods and heroes.
Exactly. All right. So once again, we do need to wrap things up. Alex unfortunately had to bow out early just because he had to get up early. So I'll go ahead and take care of his stuff. If you guys want to reach out to him and see his content as well as any questions that you might have, you can do so on Twitter at AlexJShort, and you can check out his YouTube channel, which is ShadowBlazer3000. I was actually just barely checking into the most recent thing that he has done, but a lot of his reviews are, I'm not going to say like a month old, but he's basically taking on, oh crap, what was it? Tokyo Majin, I think, is the most recent one that he did. So you guys can check that out. If you guys want to reach out to Stephen Romney, how do they do that for you, Romney?
Well, you can find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle on YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud, and now TikTok. Just don't expect me to upload to TikTok very much. I honestly just claimed the username so that way no one else would take it, mostly because there was someone I wanted to follow on TikTok. But if you want to see like the one solitary TikTok video that I've uploaded thus far, well, that's where you can find it, is under my Studio Ghost Utah handle. If you want to see a more personal side of me that, well, up until recently was mostly dominated with book reviews, pictures of my cat, pictures of food that I make, the occasional doodle, as well as the occasional angsty comic, you can follow me on Instagram at RomneyDoesArt. And if you want to witness what is probably going to become an abandoned aspect of social media, because let's face it, it's a bit of a dumpster fire at this point, I do have a Twitter account, Romney Reviews. But at this point, I've kind of just given up on Twitter because I do Twitter for my job now, and so I don't want to have to deal with it anymore.
I mainly get on Twitter just to basically make jokes now. Like, I actually stopped following like serious people, and I started following joke accounts, just because like that's the only way I could get any kind of enjoyment out of it. I mean, I still follow you guys, but I'm not interested in following, like, I love that, insert celebrity here gets suggested for me. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, for me, it's just more, I literally have to spend much of my day at work on Twitter. And so it's kind of like, yeah, this is not fun anymore. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Romney Reviews. I probably won't respond, but that's just because I've kind of abandoned Twitter at this point.
I think we all kind of have, aside from the people that are just there because that's what they do. So Shay Tari, who I want to point out that by our audience has been affectionately referred to as the unofficial fourth guy of the podcast. I don't know if you understand the radio meaning of that, but basically the fourth guy is like the guy that keeps showing up and is not necessarily officially a member of the panel, but just shows up anyway.
So kind of the Shemp Howard of the group.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not necessarily a knocking. It's just like, are you paying him too? And it never gets addressed. But Shay Tari, how did they get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Shay Tari. I do a lot of anime discussions, manga discussions, and stuff like that. You can find me on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. I also have a TikTok as well. On my TikTok and my Instagram, I mostly just started posting like little mini manga or like anime reviews of stuff that I finish, just so I can do a really quick review on it. So not even a full like YouTube video. So feel free to follow me on there. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
I find it funny that you both are on TikTok. I have been told to get onto TikTok. Specifically, I've been told you need to get on TikTok and do commentary or reviews on geek culture. And I'm just like, well, that wouldn't work because that would just be endless videos of my head exploding.
TikTok's hilarious.
How would that be? Yeah. How would that be funny? It would get old.
I mainly follow like 3 accounts on TikTok. One is a musician I follow. The other is a life advice guru that I follow, and then Gordon Ramsay, because, well, his reactions to cooking videos that are horrible are just
yes,
priceless.
I have actually seen these on YouTube. They are actually kind of funny.
I follow a lot of comedic accounts. Like this one lady, she's a singer, so she has where she gets interrupted by what she causes like at the real Indian dad, but I think it's like her husband that's playing like as this trope of like an Indian father. So it's a hilarious because she'll be singing like a pop song and he's like, you'll love 1,000 years. 1,000, who loves 1,000? Like it was hilarious. And it's just a whole bunch of comedic aspects of where she's like loading the laundry. And he's like, they're trying to fit 6 loads of laundry, 2 dogs and a cat and 2 children inside of the laundry, and you're wondering why it goes ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk as you're watching stuff.
I think I've seen one of those. I saw the one where she was like singing "It's Too Late to Apologize," and it's just like it's never too late to apologize. What kind of device is that?
Yes, it's really funny.
All right, so these are the ways to be able to show to follow you. Is there a recent video that you want to plug?
Let's see. My most recent video, I have a video that's actually coming out tomorrow where I'm actually discussing a series where the manga was better than the anime. That actually comes out tomorrow. So
that is interesting to me. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
And actually, the other thing I also want to advertise with you is that the Why We Geek podcast is a thing. It has returned. It's basically under the Geek News umbrella, and Shay has been kind of helping out on that podcast quite a bit. So the most recent example that I can give you guys is last week we recorded a Why We Geek on the return of the Bleach anime, which supposedly is still happening this year, but there are rumors that it's going to get moved to 2022. So you guys can enjoy that, as well as maybe some upcoming episodes that specifically the 3 of us are going to be doing. So you guys can check that out as well. As for me, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Drac2326. I'm kind of in Romney's situation where I check it, but it's not necessarily, I make sure to check it once a day at least. And then at that point, I leave it alone the rest of the day if I'm not laughing at something. So that's kind of how that goes. Usually a lot of my time is now spent on Instagram, so you guys can follow me there at Drac2326, where I'm putting up pictures of my kids, videos of my kids. I especially love that people love the recent video I did of my youngest's new favorite game, which is basically to pull me to the middle of the bed, push me down, and then watch me get up. And that's the game. But she loves it, by darn it. So you guys can check that out. Also, I do geeky memes, fart jokes, all that fun stuff, because, you know, that's kind of the person I am. But if you want to be able to follow the podcast, first of all, you can follow the RSS feed at geekynro.libsyn.com, and you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts / Audible. You can follow us on Player.fm, and of course, you can follow us on Spotify, all under the GNRO podcast. So you guys can check that out there. You can also follow us on social media right now for @GeekyNRO for Twitter. The Facebook, I haven't officially done this yet, but the Facebook might be going down, because if there is one social media platform I'm officially fed up with at this point, it is Facebook, and I'm debating whether or not to just get rid of the whole thing. But you guys can still follow the Twitter, and that is where you can get updates on when we're going to be going live, the stuff we're going to be talking about, because I think we're back to regular business next week, right? We don't have an additional movie to do.
No, I think the next movie thing, we've got at least a couple of weeks before
Yeah,
it
that
comes
would
out.
be, and I'm also happy to announce that, because also people have asked for it, we will be doing a Geek News Movie Night on the 2021 adaptation of Mortal Kombat. So, and Shay Turi will be joining us, because she made a very big pitch to be able to do so. So, we're going to have her join in on that one as well. And yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Romney, Shay, and Alex for enduring 4 hours, especially during busy schedules. So we appreciate that. And like I said, we will be back in a few weeks when we tackle the 2021 Mortal Kombat. So that'll be fun. Until then, for myself, for Shay, for Alex, and for Romney, we will see you guys next time.